Stick with me, you and I are about to see how a simple student becomes a legend. Jin Seowoon just wanted to study and move on after the military. But one last match pulled him right back in. As a top-ranked player in the game Loyal Ground, Seowoon thought he knew everything about survival. But when morning came, a strange, blinding light suddenly appeared behind him. Before he could even react, he was dragged into a whole new world. And let's be real here, losing means more than just a game over. Thrown into this unknown space, he wonders if he is being punished for letting his resolve to study shatter in a single day. He finally opens his eyes to a bright, noisy world. As he sits up, his jaw drops. There are people everywhere, standing around in a daze. There are even some warriors drawing their blades and lunging at each other in the middle of the street. Looking at their wild outfits, Seowoon thinks they must be cosplayers, but deep down, he feels something is terribly wrong. He can't even tell what they're shouting because they are all speaking completely different languages. Seowoon stands up and spots a massive, terrifying statue in the distance. He starts panicking, wondering where the hell he actually ended up. Now pay attention, this is where the system kicks in. A window pops up, revealing that 100 players have been detected in the area. Suddenly, the statue's eyes glow with an intense light, and a voice in his head says the system is being initialized. A moment later, another notification confirms that the language synchronization is complete. Seowoon is still lost until he hears everyone talking. Suddenly, he can understand every single person as if they were speaking Korean. He spots two guys, a mage named Escrow, arguing with a hideous, weird-looking guy named Chiron. It seems these two are just as confused about how they were brought to this bizarre location. Turns out Escrow is an archmage, while Chiron actually works for a demon king back in their home world. Escrow gets tired of Chiron's face and blasts him with lightning. Chiron freaks out, but once the smoke clears, he is somehow still standing strong. Chiron is stunned. There's no way he should be alive after taking a direct magical hit like that. In fact, he doesn't feel a thing, and the two immediately start shouting at each other all over again. Escrow blames Chiron, accusing him of dragging them from their own world to this strange place. But Chiron is just as clueless. Watching this chaos unfold, Seowoon realizes this definitely isn't a dream. Suddenly, they're notified that the game is starting, and the difficulty level has been set to easy. They need to reach the top 90, and the chosen map is the capital city of a great kingdom. However, players who claw their way into the top 10 or higher will receive much better rewards. You and I have seen this before. The tutorial is skipped and a game map appears. Attacks won't work in the waiting room, and everything feels like a live-action game. The system calls the game Claude Survival and starts giving a brief explanation for all the newcomers. Apparently, the match lasts 100 days, and the map gets smaller every single day. If you stay in the restricted zones, you will suffer some serious damage. The system makes it clear the game only ends when there is one survivor left standing. If the game ends or they get eliminated, they'll be sent back home. However, those who fail to reach the top 90 won't ever be allowed to participate in this game again. The system then tells them they will soon drop onto the map to find items for their survival. Hearing all this, Seowoon can't believe his ears. He wonders if he's just dreaming about Loyal Ground, but he's terrified he won't stand a chance against these superpowered humans. Still, he is not ready to die, even if this whole thing is just a nightmare. While he's planning his move, a massive player suddenly calls him messy hair and starts insulting him. The guy is huge and carries a giant sword. He screams at Seowoon, demanding to know why he's acting so weird. He asks where Seowoon is from, but our hero stays silent, which only makes the big guy angrier. The bully yells again, but Seowoon notices the game is about to start in only 3 seconds. He gives a smug smile, pissing the guy off even more. Just before teleporting, Seowoon flips him the bird. He's confident that with his gaming knowledge, he can survive and take down trash like this guy. Before the guy can swing, the timer hits 0, and everyone finds themselves falling from the sky. Seowoon notices everyone else heading for the high-tier loot zones in the middle of the city. Trust me, you and I know the outskirts are the safest bet. Seowoon heads for the edge to stay alive. Alright, let's watch our hero drop into a battle for survival. He spots a house and screams descend to land right in front of it. The landing hits him hard with massive motion sickness, but he doesn't have time to recover. Suddenly, he hears a rustling sound nearby. Panic sets in instantly. With his vision still a blurry mess, he sprints toward the house, realizing he has no idea if an enemy landed nearby. Seowoon dashes into the house, knowing full well he is dead meat if he runs into an enemy while he still lacks a weapon. He makes it into one of the rooms and collapses on the floor just to catch his breath. He wonders if that guy he provoked at the start followed him. Honestly, Seowoon is already regretting that bold move big time. He peeks through the window, but when he doesn't see anyone moving outside, he figures it was just the sound of the wind. Now that he's calmed down, he decides to search every corner of the house. The first thing he finds is a heavy crossbow. The moment he grabs it, the sheer weight of the weapon catches him off guard. But hey, a heavy weapon is still better than having no weapon at all. As he equips it, martial knowledge suddenly flows into his brain. He loads a bolt and raises the bow to take aim. His aim is perfect as he starts bragging about his time as a sergeant in the South Korean army. Now watch this. He thinks this is nothing, but the crossbow's recoil creates a massive shockwave that sends him flying backward. He lands hard on his back, and as the dust settles, he sees the bolt has literally torn a hole through the wall. It hits him right then. If he masters this crossbow, he might actually survive this crazy game. He gets back up and searches the rest of the house, but there is nothing else useful hidden inside. He is not giving up yet though. The map is huge, and there is plenty more loot waiting out there. Seowoon proceeds into another house and finds a scroll. A quick check reveals it is a small healing item. If he rips it, his wounds will heal instantly. Surprised by the find, he decides to hunt for more recovery items. He really wishes he had an item bag to help him carry all this loot. Suddenly, he spots a book in the distance and quickly grabs it. It is a martial arts manual specifically for the Black Star Chi Palms technique. This technique actually lets a person fire hidden weapons directly from their fingertips. The system asks if he wants to learn the skill. He says yes, hoping for a tutorial to help him understand the move. A blinding light hits him as the book is absorbed directly into his body. He tests it out by grabbing a fork and hurling it toward the wooden wall. To his shock, the fork flies at high speed and leaves a massive dent. He's thrilled to realize he can find martial arts books anywhere in this world. If there are martial arts books, there must be magic books too. You and I can see where this is going. He's starting to think this world and his old game are identical. With no more loot in sight, he decides it's time to move. Night falls quickly, and he realizes he needs to find a safe hiding spot to survive. He finds another house soon after, but the lights are on, making him feel very skeptical. This usually means one of two things. Either there's a rare item inside, or a player is already camping in there. He decides to go in anyway, making sure to stay on high alert for any traps. He still has no idea how many people landed near him. It is always a coin flip in these games. You are either dealing with a total noob or a literal pro. The first floor is completely empty. He starts wondering if the enemy is currently hiding out somewhere up on the second floor. He weighs his options. Should he use his new martial arts, or stick with the heavy crossbow in his hands? Seowoon creeps toward the second floor, crossbow raised and ready to take down anyone who jumps out at him. When he reaches the top, there's nothing scary at all, just a simple lantern sitting on a wooden table. There is one more room left, and he wonders if it's a trap. He kicks the door open, expecting an ambush, but to his genuine surprise, there is absolutely nobody there. He crashes to his knees in massive relief, realizing he has been terrified over nothing. He starts searching the room and finds a rare item called the Ring of Strength. This ring gives the user 20 extra points of strength once it is equipped. Talk about a major power-up. Seowoon puts the ring on. Immediately, he feels a massive change as his body starts feeling much lighter than before. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how he uses this new power next time. Alright, you and I are about to see if 20 extra points actually make a difference here. Seowoon is totally crushed looking at his stats. Without that new ring he just found, his strength and basic abilities would be absolute garbage. He then spots something interesting. Under the class section, he is officially labeled as a martial artist. Seowoon finally cracks a smile. Compared to when he first arrived, he feels actually blessed. Searching the floor further, he strikes gold again. He finds a rare subspace ring that lets the user store items in a pocket dimension when equipped. He wonders why he keeps getting rings, but after reading the description, he realizes it is basically just a video game inventory. He tests it out by shouting subspace, and a tiny shimmering portal opens right in front of him. He tosses a healing scroll inside and realizes this is way better than hauling a heavy bag everywhere. Seowoon sighs, thinking about how amazing it would be if tech like this actually existed back in the real world. Seriously, everything he has scavenged so far would be completely mind-blowing if he could just take it back home. Now pay attention to this window. Seowoon needs to check the player count to see how many people have already died in this game. Surprisingly, only one person has been eliminated so far. Knowing he's still safe, Seowoon gets back to his looting. Luckily, he finds several hidden weapons that will pair perfectly with his Black Star Cheap Palms technique. The house is cleared out, so he considers moving on, but the idea of just sleeping there overnight crosses his mind. Since he lacks the raw strength to take down those scary guys from the lobby, he figures that staying hidden through the night is his absolute best bet. By laying low and reaching the top 90, he knows he can grab even better loot. Since fewer people will be out at night, he decides to hit one last house before sunrise. A bit later, Seowoon notices he isn't even tired yet, even though he has been on the move for quite a while. It turns out his Ring of Strength is doing all the heavy lifting for him. Still, he is getting pretty hungry and thirsty. He starts to suspect this game is way more like reality than he thought. He keeps pushing toward the city, hoping to find food. Suddenly, a terrifying growl echoes behind him, and he dives for cover. Peeking out, he nearly loses it when he realizes he has accidentally wandered right into the middle of werewolf territory. Before he can even catch his breath to think, another werewolf lunges from the shadows, nearly taking his head off with its claws, but Seowoon barely dodges the strike. He is sweating buckets because he really thought this was a player versus player game with zero monsters involved. You and I both know he's regretting leaving that house now. He sprints for his life toward a building in the distance. Using every bit of his stamina, he bursts into the building to hide. But the werewolves are still tracking him. Seowoon panics, wondering how he's supposed to survive a situation like this. Peering through a hole in the door, he sees the wolf sniffing the air, trying to catch his scent. Since the beast hasn't spotted him yet, he decides his only option is to strike first and strike hard. Seowoon takes aim and lets a bolt fly. It travels at insane speed, slamming into the werewolf and dropping it in pain. With one down, Seowoon realizes he still has to deal with the second beast before things get even worse. His careful plans go straight to hell when the last wolf charges the house, attacking him with pure rage. Seowoon manages to leap backward, narrowly avoiding the claws while training his crossbow on the incoming monster. He fires, but the wolf blocks the bolt with its arm and keeps lunging straight for him. His life flashes before his eyes, but he refuses to die here. He reaches into his subspace for a weapon. As the wolf closes in, he lets loose a hidden dagger using his Black Star Palms technique. The blade rips through the werewolf's body, tearing a massive hole right through its chest and killing it instantly. Seowoon starts acting tough, bragging that he would never die to a weakling monster like this. But let's be real, he was actually absolutely terrified. He is just glad he kept that throwing dagger. Dying to a werewolf would have been a pretty embarrassing way to go. Right then, he notices the dead beast drop some loot. To his disappointment, it is only some plain water and jerky. This makes him annoyed since he could have easily hunted for food himself. He checks the area anyway and finds a piece of armor. He wonders if it works like a bulletproof vest. Seowoon puts it on, but it's too big. Trust me, you and I need to see what's next. Alright, stick with me. You and I are about to see this mysterious armor adjust itself perfectly onto Seowoon as the system equips a high-tier oracle breastplate. This epic gear gives him a solid level of resistance against both fire and wind magic attacks. Seowoon is thrilled because it boosted more than 2 stats, so he decides to keep searching the area for any other hidden gems he can find. After searching until he's nearly ready to quit, he finally spots a mysterious cloak. He isn't sure what it does, but once he puts it on, he discovers it is a nightcloak. Equip it and stand still in the dark, and you'll completely vanish into the shadows. While hidden, magic detection can't find him, and every sound he makes is totally muffled. Now, here's the part you've got to see. Seowoon realizes this rare find is his ultimate ticket to survival, letting him dodge anyone he meets after the sun goes down. He was originally confused about why a house was sitting in the middle of nowhere, but it turns out to be a top-tier loot zone. Seowoon's luck is definitely peaking on day 2. He keeps moving forward, wondering why he hasn't run into a single other player yet. He thinks it's just his random spawn point, but then he suddenly hears a player breathing heavily while sprinting nearby. The stranger mumbles about his regrets, saying he should have used his item while he still had the chance. Seowoon dives for cover, and thanks to that nightcloak, the guy doesn't suspect a thing. The dude keeps complaining about meeting a mage, and Seowoon considers taking him out with his crossbow since the guy looks pretty weak. He hesitates for a second, but reminds himself this is just a game and these people aren't real. Before he can even move, a massive fire blast shoots through the trees and slams into the guy. The poor guy is roasted instantly. Once he vanishes, he leaves behind a loot chest. Since there's no body, just a chest, Seowoon finally confirms that they're definitely trapped in a game. Okay, you and I both know that chest is full of loot. But Seowoon is still stuck, wondering exactly where that deadly fire attack came from. He's still processing it when the attacker suddenly appears right in front of him, holding a fireball. Seowoon almost screams but covers his mouth just in time. He's so thankful for the cloak because the attacker walks right past him without seeing a thing. The mage then casually walks over to the chest to start looting, and Seowoon realizes he's probably the next target. In this game, players will hunt you down just to climb the rankings. Since it's kill or be killed, he decides it's better to take the initiative and strike first. Seowoon fires a bolt at the mage, but it just gets stuck in a magical barrier. The dude realizes he's under attack and panics, knowing he's made way too much noise already. Another bolt hits the barrier. The mage is terrified because he can't even see who's attacking, and he knows his shield won't last forever. The player blindly fires a fireball towards Seowoon's general direction, scorching the entire area. But he misses completely, and before he can react, another bolt flies in from behind him. This shot shatters his barrier, and he starts desperately spraying fireballs in every single direction. Suddenly, a dagger flies out and hits him right in the head, sending him crashing to the ground. Seowoon realizes he's won the fight and slowly walks over to claim the dead man's chest. He knows he needs to loot fast and get out before the fire attracts even more trouble. Seowoon checks the mage's chest first and starts grabbing whatever random items he can find inside. He finds the necklace of escrow, a pure gold symbol showing someone is part of that magic society. It seems like trash with no real stats, but he decides to keep it just in case. Then he finds a circle stone, which allows a user to engrave a mana circle around their heart. Once it's used, you can master that circle's magic. Seowoon realizes he can finally become a powerful mage. He remembers the guy from earlier didn't get to use it, which explains those dying words of regret. Seowoon offers his condolences while promising to put this rare item to good use in his place. He grabs the rest of the loot and tosses it into subspace storage to check later in safety. After traveling for a while, he finds a house that looks like a safe spot to use the stone. Before starting, the system warns him he'll be frozen for 3 hours and unable to take any actions. And trust me, you and I need to see how this painful transformation ends. Alright, you and I are about to watch Seowoon push through absolute agony to hide his screams from other players. 3 hours later, he can't believe his luck. The system promised only slight pain, but this felt like his soul was being shredded. It felt like he was actually dying. Turns out, mastering martial arts is a walk in the park compared to the nightmare of learning magic. He pulls up his stats and gets a massive shock. It looks like he's officially dual class now. He is now both a martial artist and a mage. With those two from earlier dead, he checks the remaining player count again. He expected the number to be high, but his heart drops. Only 45 survivors are left in this whole twisted game. The kill feed reveals a monster. Most of these players were slaughtered by one person, a ruthless player named Nam Sagwang. A few hours earlier, we see this kid-faced psycho, Nam, tearing through other players like they were nothing more than paper. Nam wants the world to watch. He is being as brutal as possible just to make sure everyone knows exactly who he is. By the third day, Seowoon is losing it. The body count is rising way faster than he ever imagined. Now pay attention, because Seowoon is terrified of Nam, but he is also realizing something. If this killer keeps thinning the crowd, he might actually break into the top 10. He starts wondering about the rewards. What kind of prize do you get for surviving this hellish top 10 list? He's guessing it's just money or items, but there is a bigger theory. What if they can take these skills and items back to the real world? That would change his life forever. He tries to focus. There is a killer on the loose, and counting his rewards early might just get him killed. Seowoon checks his body and confirms that there is a new kind of power moving deep within him. Is this mana? He remembers the magic book he found yesterday while looting and decides it's finally time to check it out. The title of the book reads, The Magic Book of Windball. It allows the user to create spheres of wind. The more power you have, the more deadly orbs you can manifest. Seowoon starts the learning process. Just like before, the knowledge is absorbed directly into his head. Once the process is finished, he screams out the magic words. To his disappointment, all he manages to conjure is a handful of tiny, pathetic-looking wind spheres. He hurls them at a wall in frustration, but the impact is massive. They did way more damage than he thought. You see that? These things are sleepers. Small but deadly, which means they're going to be his secret weapon later on. But suddenly, a wave of exhaustion hits him. He's totally drained of energy all of a sudden. His mana stats show he's completely tapped out. Suddenly, the restricted zone pops up on the map, and the boundaries begin to shrink inward. Seowoon decides to hunt for more items while hugging the very edge of the boundary for safety. He thinks he's safe. With half the players already dead, the chances of running into anyone else should be pretty low. Still, he has to move fast. He needs to loot everything he can before the zone closes in further. Little does he know, a white-haired old man is watching him. 12 hours later, Seowoon finds a cluster of houses and dead players' chests. Suddenly, he senses a human presence nearby. He's not alone. Without hesitating, he unleashes his wind spheres toward the direction of the hidden presence. The area is shredded. Looking closer, he spots fresh blood dripping on the floor. He definitely hit someone. This person survived this long, so they've got to be strong. This isn't just some random weakling. Part of him wants to finish the kill, but survival comes first. He decides to back away quietly instead. Once Seowoon finally leaves, the man hiding behind the wall reveals himself, thanking his lucky stars that he managed to survive that blast. The guy starts trash-talking, claiming he would have taken Seowoon out easily if he wasn't already injured. He reaches for a loot chest, hoping for a quick escape. But before he can touch it, a bolt pierces his head. He collapses instantly, leaving his chest behind for the real winner. It was Seowoon. He never left. He just hid and waited for the idiot to walk right into his trap. He's still bragging about his trap when a voice suddenly calls out from behind. A white-haired old man is standing there, telling him he's pretty skilled. Seowoon panics. He can't believe he let his guard down so easily. The old man tells him to relax. He just has a few questions. But Seowoon isn't exactly feeling the chill vibes. Seowoon demands to know who he is, but the old man just scoffs at the question. Does it even matter? They all came from completely different worlds to be in this game after all. Seowoon just laughs nervously. Trust me, you and I can tell this old guy is on a whole different level compared to everyone else. Alright, you and I are jumping into a world where a mysterious old man just called out Seowoon about his previous combat experience. The elder explains he has been observing the kid, noting how incredibly fast he adapts to these strange new surroundings. He is convinced Seowoon already realizes that everything happening around them isn't actually part of the real world. This sends a chill down Seowoon's spine because he had no idea he was being watched this whole time. Seowoon admits it is his first time in a real game world, but he's played plenty of similar simulations back in his own world. The old man is genuinely fascinated, asking if the games from his home are anything like the nightmare they are in now. Judging by his strange outfit, the elder is already certain that he and Seowoon hail from completely different worlds and civilizations. Suddenly, the elder notices the sun setting, and Seowoon realizes they've already survived until the third day. When the elder asks if the moon looks the same as back home, Seowoon points out that this world's moon is actually much larger than his. The old man is curious and suggests that Seowoon explain the games he played back in his world. But Seowoon isn't comfortable talking here, warning the man that they are sitting ducks for a potential ambush at any moment. Realizing this conversation is going to take a while, the elder decides it is time for them to find somewhere else. Seowoon defensively asks the old man how he is supposed to trust that he isn't just taking him away to be killed. Ignoring the question, the elder grabs him and warns him to stay quiet, because they both know exactly what would happen if they were caught. Now watch this, before Seowoon can even blink, he's being carried through the air as the old man literally takes flight, leaving him completely breathless. Moments later, they land at the very top of a massive tree, where the elder promises they will finally be safe. While the old man stands perfectly balanced on a branch like a total boss, Seowoon is desperately clinging to the tree trunk for dear life. Seowoon explains his world has advanced technology, which the elder believes, since it explains why the boy learned the game's mechanics so incredibly fast. Seowoon can't help but wonder exactly how long this powerful man has been stalking him. Without missing a beat, the old man reveals he's been watching him since the moment he landed. Apparently, he planned to enjoy the mountain air for 100 days, but he was too intrigued by what Seowoon was doing to look away. He only approached because he is curious about why they were summoned here, and he tells Seowoon to drop his guard because he has absolutely no intention of hurting him. Seowoon sighs and admits that he has no clue why they were dragged into this game world either. But the elder hasn't forgotten that Seowoon mentioned he had seen something like this in his own world. Seowoon clarifies the big difference back home. People play for fun, and losing doesn't mean you actually die. He tells the elder he has no idea why supernatural beings would go around abducting people from their own homeworlds like this. Wait for it, this is where Seowoon explains that for the right person, this nightmare could actually be a massive opportunity to change their lives. He explains that in games, winners are given ranks and rewards, and he suspects this world will grant similar prizes to those who survive until the end. Seowoon believes these rewards will consist of legendary items and powers obtained directly from this world. That includes the incredible skills and martial arts one might learn while fighting to stay alive here. He doesn't have concrete proof yet, and while the elder might not need it, others are going to be hungry for that power. Seowoon is certain that anyone struggling in their real life would see this as a once-in-a-lifetime chance to change their fate. The elder curiously asks the boy why he assumes his own life has been free of struggle. Seowoon points out that as a master, the old man likely has an army of loyal followers back in his own world. He compares that to himself, a regular guy who is pretty useless back home, which is why this game is a massive opportunity for anyone struggling. The old man just laughs. He bellows out that Seowoon is quite the character, but the boy frantically tells him to keep it down before they get caught. The elder then asks why he was waving his hands in thin air, and Seowoon finally realizes the old man has no clue how to open the system map. Seowoon spends the rest of the night teaching the elder various system tips and tricks, and before they even realize it, the morning sun has already arrived. The old man carries them back down and apologizes for keeping him, but Seowoon insists it was no trouble at all. Deep down, Seowoon knows that staying close to this powerful elder is his best bet for surviving in this dangerous place. The old man then asks if there is anything he can do to repay Seowoon for all those useful tips. Seowoon doesn't hesitate, asking if the elder can teach him real martial arts, because he needs that level of strength to survive this game until the end. And that's where we leave it, the elder laughs, saying it's possible, but Seowoon better be prepared for a literal, living hell. Alright, you and I are about to watch Seowoon face a choice where the man straight up says the only alternative is his literal death. The old man warns him that stepping outside the norm for power comes with one hell of a heavy price tag. Now he just needs to know, is Seowoon actually prepared? But Seowoon kills the mood instantly, reminding him they are in a game where dying isn't permanent, leaving the old man completely speechless. Realizing this, the old man decides he can finally use the exact high-risk method he has been keeping in mind. Seowoon wastes zero time asking for a power-up, and the old man admits that it is at least worth a shot. Hyped up, Seowoon asks what is next, so the old man decides to check exactly how much inner energy the kid has. The man places a hand on his head, but his face drops when he senses a pathetic amount of energy inside. He insults him, saying even his pet dog has more juice, leaving our main character feeling absolutely disrespected and confused. Siwoon has to remind him again that his world doesn't even have things like martial arts or internal energy pools. The old man cannot wrap his head around it, so he just tells Siwoon to sit down in the lotus position. Before the real work starts, he warns him the pain will be so intense he will feel like dying, but he won't be able to move. Pay attention here, the man tells him his only job is to survive the agony, because if his spirit breaks now, he actually dies. As the ritual finally begins, Siwoon's senses suddenly explode, letting him hear and feel every tiny detail in the environment around him with insane clarity. It is calm for a second. Then his energy spikes, making him scream out in pure agony, wondering if this really is the end. It feels like his soul is being ripped out as his eyes go totally pitch black. After what feels like an eternity of torture, it is finally over. Siwoon is looking like a ghost, but the old man actually looks quite impressed. Enduring that much pain proves his body is actually pretty tough. Since his internal chi flow is now fixed, his physical state is about to change forever. Siwoon asks what the next move is, and the master reminds him of his original goal, getting strong enough to survive. To do that, he shifted a piece of the kid's soul to carve out a special gate for absorbing energy. He explains that most people can only take in world energy through simple breathing, but Siwoon now has a secondary gate that allows him to pull in power from other sources entirely. Okay, let's pause for a second. The man explains that every person is a mix of body, mind, and soul. Life chi binds those three together. He asks what happens to that energy when someone dies, and Siwoon guesses that it just vanishes into thin air. Wrong. It doesn't just disappear, the energy actually disperses and spreads out into the surrounding world. That scattered life force gets soaked up by nature, which is exactly how the cycle of life keeps on spinning. However, some see this as a waste, and will even resort to murder just to steal that energy for themselves. Stealing energy like that makes you completely unstable. Eventually, your inner harmony shatters, leading to a total loss of all powers or a very messy death. This new forbidden technique allows Siwoon to harvest that scattered energy to boost his own internal power levels to the absolute peak. Siwoon starts panicking, fearing he might die too, but the master says he is different because he actually used a piece of his own soul to build that gate. Since Siwoon had zero energy to start with, he's basically a perfect blank slate. The old man just rewired his veins so he can absorb all that life energy perfectly, without any issues. He asks if Siwoon gets why he'd give him a technique that is totally forbidden in his homeworld of Yongwon. Siwoon realizes it is because this is a game world, and the master is impressed by how fast the kid puts it all together. The man admits he can sense chi wherever people have died, which means the only way to level up this forbidden technique is to be standing right where blood was spilled. But since this is a survival game, killing isn't exactly an issue. He is certain that after 100 days of doing this, Siwoon will reach a terrifying level. It is finally time for them to part ways, and the master hopes their paths cross at least once more in the future. Right before leaving, Siwoon begs for a name, and he reveals it is Jendon. Bowing deeply, our hero promises he will never forget the help he received here. You and I should watch him closely, as focusing on his Dantian is how he'll slowly build up his massive inner strength. Until next time, alright, you and I are about to see if Siwoon's lessons actually worked for the old man. Dune pulls out the map perfectly, and tells Siwoon they will meet again when fate allows. With that, Dune leaps into the distance, vanishing instantly like a ghost in the wind. Siwoon watches in total awe. He realizes how much easier life would be if he could travel like that, moving across the map without a single worry. Still, he sticks to the plan and heads toward the outskirts of the restricted zone. After a full day of trekking, he finally makes it, proving just how massive this map really is. He spots a house with the lights on, and he knows it can only mean two things. Either it is totally abandoned, or some clueless newbie forgot to hide their light. Regardless, he has no choice but to step inside and check it out. He scavenges for a while, but only finds basic junk like healing scrolls and jerky, nothing worth a fortune. Then it hits him he has not slept a wink because he was way too busy chatting with the old man. He wraps himself in his cloak, and finally drifts off into a deep, much-needed sleep. But he oversleeps. It is already day 5 when he is jolted awake by the sound of another player looting the house. Siwoon panics. The sun is high, and he has been sleeping like a log while danger was right outside his door. Now, pay attention, this is where things get lethal. He grabs his bow, and the moment a player steps inside, Siwoon fires. But the guy is fast enough to slice the bolt mid-air. Siwoon's heart drops when he sees who he is up against. Of all people, it had to be him. He is facing a literal martial artist. Siwoon reaches into his subspace, unleashing a storm of hidden weapons. While the fighter is busy blocking daggers, Siwoon lunges forward and slams him into the dirt. He grabs an arrow, ready to drive it home. The guy starts begging for his life, promising anything in exchange for mercy. But Siwoon does not blink. He drives the arrow straight through his head, ending him instantly. As the player fades, a loot chest pops into existence. Suddenly, Siwoon feels a strange green energy. He realizes he is looking at life chi, exactly what the old man was talking about. He absorbs the energy, and his body suddenly overflows with pure power. It hits him he is finally feeling what it is like to have real inner energy. You feel that power? Just by taking one single life, Seowoon's body already feels lighter and 10 times stronger than before. He pulls up his status window and sees a brand new stat specifically for inner energy. His inner energy is currently sitting at 20 points. That is likely the power he stole from his victim. Seowoon smirks. The gift he got from that old man is turning out to be absolutely legendary. However, he knows that just killing people for chi is a dangerous game. He needs a better way. He checks the player count and freezes. In just 5 days, the number of survivors has plummeted to 24. As he watches, the count drops again. He quickly pulls up the kill feed to see who is responsible. It is Nam again. That monster is hunting down everyone he finds, clearly trying to force this whole game to an early, bloody conclusion. Suddenly, Nam spots Seowoon's name on the feed. He notices the name is popping up more and more frequently. Nam is officially keeping tabs on him now, while Seowoon is doing everything possible to stay hidden. Seowoon knows he does not stand a chance. He barely survived his last fight. Taking on Nam would be suicide. He is not ready for a top-tier threat yet. He checks the loot from his last kill, but it is all just trash. He decides his best bet is to lay low until the player count drops even further. A week later, Seowoon realizes how lucky he was early on. Every item he finds now is basically bottom-of-the-barrel garbage. He stays in the forest near the border, hunting werewolves for meat just so he can avoid running into other players. By now, he is absolutely sick of eating dry jerky. On the 12th day, only 20 players remain. He reaches out to touch the restricted zone and flinches from the pain. It is deadly. Seowoon is starting to sweat because for a whole week, the kill feed has been nothing but Nam's victims. It seems like everyone else is hiding just like him. Suddenly, he sees a pillar of smoke. He knows a massive battle is breaking out over there. Apparently, a group of players has teamed up. They realize Nam is too dangerous to let live and are trying to take him down together. Nam just laughs at them, asking if they are really so pathetic that they need a whole squad to fight one kid. Actually, he tells them he is grateful. They saved him the trouble of tracking them down one by delivering themselves right to his doorstep. Nam asks if they are ready to die. And trust me, we are about to find out. Alright, you and I are about to see Nam absolutely lose it as he drops onto his first victim. He crushes the guy's skull in a single hit. In seconds, another one drops, and the fight becomes a total massacre as Nam shreds them all one by one. Seowoon watches from the shadows, realizing Nam will win the entire match unless some miracle stops him. He stares in pure disbelief as Nam's name completely takes over the entire kill feed. Killing 9 players at once seems impossible, making Seowoon wonder if this guy is actually using hacks. Nam stands over the bodies with zero pity. They were too weak to even give him a real challenge. But look at this, a mage's staff is left behind in the wreckage of Nam's path of destruction. Later, the archmage arrives and finds the weapon. He immediately recognizes it as the staff belonging to his student, Elizabeth. The archmage snaps instantly, swearing a blood oath to avenge Elizabeth's death. Meanwhile, Seowoon realizes that if he just stays hidden a bit longer, he'll land a top 10 finish. But ranking isn't enough. He needs high-tier gear if he actually plans on surviving the final circle. Perched high in a tree, Seowoon spots a massive, luxurious mansion standing solo in the distance. Since the mansion will be outside the safe zone tomorrow, this is his very last chance to scavenge for elite loot. He enters the mansion and is stunned by its luxury. He finds some royal guard armor but leaves it behind because the extra weight would just slow him down. He's certain there's better treasure hidden deeper inside, so he keeps exploring the grand halls. Soon, he discovers a rare elixir that boosts internal energy, but the absorption process takes 3 full hours. This is huge. Now he can gain power without having to drain life energy from others. He loots a secret martial arts manual next, but he has to wait to use the elixir since he must stay perfectly still while it works. Now, check this out. He finds a cellar door, and he's betting there's something legendary hidden underneath. Boom! A massive explosion rocks the entire mansion, forcing Seowoon to sprint for his life. He dives into the bushes, heart racing, wondering who caught him. He was positive no one had tracked his position. Then he sees him, the archmage. It turns out that devastating blast was actually aimed right at Nam Sagwang. The mage praises Nam for surviving, but Nam just tells the old man to shut up before he beats him senseless. Little did they know, you and I are probably just as shocked as Seowoon. The monster who killed 90% of the players is just a kid. Escrow levitates, raising his staff high to call down a jagged bolt of lethal lightning on Nam. Nam barely dodges. Escrow screams, demanding to know how long he'll run. He wants Nam to fight back like he did against Elizabeth. Nam dodged, but he knows this mage is the real deal. He's never faced someone this powerful, even back in Zhongyuan. Actually, some of these insane skills are starting to seriously terrify Nam. Escrow isn't done. He conjures a second lightning storm, dead set on turning Nam into a pile of ash. Watching the electricity surge toward him, Nam realizes that a single direct hit means instant death. He pushes his speed to the limit, lunging at Escrow to end this. But the mage's barrier holds firm, and he smacks Nam away with his staff. Wait, that was just an illusion? Nam is faster than we thought. Rain begins to pour, and Seowoon realizes the mage's power is so insane he's actually changing the weather. The real Nam is already making his escape. Escrow screams into the storm, vowing to hunt him down and finish the job. Nam gets away, promising a better fight next time. He's smart enough to know when to retreat and heal his wounds. Escrow lands and searches the area, but his target has already vanished into thin air. Seowoon breathes a sigh of relief. He only survived that chaos thanks to his cloak of hiding. He heads back to that cellar, hoping for a safe filled with legendary items. He pulls the door open and heads down into the dark. He lights up his lantern to guide the way, feeling pretty smug that he grabbed it during yesterday's loot run. Reaching the bottom, he sees rows of hanging meat. It hits him this isn't a treasure vault, it's just a food cellar. He's crushed. He was expecting epic gear, not a grocery store. But then he thinks about it. He's been living off tasteless jerky for days. So this is actually a massive win. An hour later, Seowoon is grinning ear to ear, finally full after the best meal of his life. Now that he's energized, you and I know it's finally time for him to take that elixir and level up. You and I are about to see him master a legendary manual called Unrestrained Fist. The creator poured his entire heart and soul into this style. But it was lost to time simply because he had no disciples left. Seowoon is not exactly blown away. But hey, it is better than nothing. He downs the elixir first and decides to worry about the rest later. The moment he gulps it down, Seowoon screams in agony as raw inner energy floods into his dantian like a tidal wave. This makes his previous power-ups look like a joke compared to the massive energy currently surging through his entire body. His movements turn heavy and dull. Just like that, he is paralyzed and cannot move a muscle for the next 3 hours. The system was right. 3 hours later, Seowoon finally regains control and collapses onto his back. Completely exhausted from staying perfectly still for so long, he is actually pretty proud of himself. He survived a full week without being hunted down by monsters like Nam or Escrow. On the 13th day, he leaves the cellar and finds himself exactly where he expected. He is right on the edge of the restricted zone. Checking the player count, he is shocked to see only 10 people remaining. He wonders who died while he was hiding, and when he checks the logs, he is shocked to discover it was actually Dune. It looks like the old man took himself out, leaving Seowoon to wonder why he would ever choose such a tragic end. Making the top 10 is a win, but Seowoon can't help feeling a bit bitter about how it all went down. Suddenly, the map starts shrinking. Seowoon knows it would be a total disaster to get caught by the zone after finally surviving this long. He quickly retreats from the zone and decides to stick to the same strategy that has kept him breathing so far. For someone as weak as him, this is the only path to victory. Seowoon is just minding his own business when a massive fireball roars toward him. He barely manages to leap out of the way. He barely evades the blast. Now, watch this. Only one mage is strong enough to throw a fireball that massive, and that is none other than the monster, Escrow. He is standing face to face with the terrifying Escrow. Escrow looks disappointed. He was hoping to bait Nam out, not just stumble across a random new face like Seowoon. Seowoon realizes his mistake. He used his new internal energy to move fast, but he accidentally sprinted right into the enemy's lap. Escrow demands to know where Nam is hiding. It is the only way he is letting Seowoon walk away from this in one piece. You saw that too, right? Nam is lurking right behind them with a manic grin, and they have no idea what is coming. Seowoon is forced to play dumb, asking Escrow how he could possibly know where Nam is when they just met. There is no way he is going to spill the beans. Escrow just scoffs, claiming that Seowoon and Nam clearly look like they come from the same home region. In the middle of the interrogation, Seowoon spots a shadow. Nam is mid-air, leaping right at Escrow from behind. Escrow feels a massive impact rattle his barrier from behind. He spins around only to realize that Nam has finally arrived. Nam starts taunting him, boasting that he is fully healed. Meanwhile, Escrow is clearly running dangerously low on mana. Seowoon is absolutely panicking as the two giants clash. Nam punches the barrier with insane force, screaming that he is going to end this right now. Escrow just laughs, telling Nam that his pathetic attacks will never reach him. But before he can even blink, he feels his own throat being ripped wide open. Nam bypassed the defense somehow. He leans in and taunts the dying man, asking if he has ever heard of enhanced energy. It is called arm energy, a rare substyle of enhanced energy that almost nobody in this world has ever truly mastered. Nam admits that he never expected to use this power in the game world. He tells Escrow to consider it an honor, since he is the very first person to witness this deadly skill in action. Escrow collapses, hacking up blood and clutching his neck as the life flows out of him like a broken faucet. Nam tells him that he could have easily cruised into the top 5 if he had just stayed away, but his biggest mistake was crossing paths with the wrong man. Meanwhile, Seowoon is thanking his lucky stars that Nam saved him from a gruesome death. Seowoon slips away, deciding to run while the two powerhouses are still distracted. Nam delivers one final, brutal blow to the throat to make sure Escrow stays down for good. As he runs, Seowoon looks back and wonders just how godlike he would become if he could absorb their legendary life key. Escrow sits drowning in his own blood while Nam continues to mock him, asking where all that arrogance went. Nam asks if he has any last words, but it is just a sick joke because he knows Escrow can't even make a sound with a shattered throat. Suddenly, Escrow speaks into Nam's mind, revealing that Elizabeth, the woman he killed, was actually his dear apprentice. She was kicked out of the academy just for being a woman, and Escrow's biggest regret is that he didn't protect her. Nam keeps trash talking, but Escrow is done. Trust me, you and I are about to see him finally shut that filthy mouth once and for all. Alright, you and I are about to see things get absolutely chaotic as Seowoon looks up and spots a massive meteor hurtling straight toward them. Nam is losing his mind. He cannot understand how Escrow found the strength to cast a spell like this while clinging to his final breath. This is it, Armageddon. Escrow explains it is an archmage's ultimate move, fueled by their very life, chi and mana, as the ultimate sacrifice. Nam immediately books it, and Seowoon follows suit. Panic sets in as Seowoon curses himself for not running the second he had the opportunity to escape. The meteor slams down with Escrow inside, his final thoughts drifting towards seeing Elizabeth in the afterlife. The impact is catastrophic, shattering the landscape and igniting everything in a fiery explosion that looks like a literal nuclear blast. Far in the distance, another elf stands watching. He is just like Escrow, taking in the scale of the destruction. Seeing the sheer power behind the magic, he realizes there is only one man capable of such a feat, Escrow himself. Once the dust finally starts to settle, Seowoon is seen groaning in pure agony, filled with regret for not running the moment he had the chance. But he is not ready to give up on life just yet, so he frantically reaches into his subspace to pull out his emergency healing scrolls. He had been hoarding these scrolls specifically for a nightmare scenario just like this one. He realizes that without the elixir he took earlier, he never would have survived that blast radius. Even after activating a scroll, the pain is still unbearable. It is clear that one single scroll will not cut it. He ends up shredding every single scroll in his possession just to numb the excruciating pain and stitch himself back together. Seowoon checks the kill feed to confirm Escrow is dead, but he is annoyed he missed out on absorbing that life chi. But then he notices something odd. There is no mention of Nam's death. Could he still be alive? Stick with me. Seowoon hears a faint sound and begins to track it down. To his shock, he finds Nam mangled and begging for his life. His arms and lower body have been completely shredded by that devastating meteor strike. With a healing scroll clamped in his teeth, he begs Seowoon for help since he is physically unable to use it. Seowoon is not shocked. He knew it would be almost impossible for Nam to dodge a meteor aimed right at his head. With both arms gone, Nam is totally helpless and cannot activate any of his healing items. Nam desperately pleads for Seowoon to take the scroll from his mouth and tear it open for him. Seowoon catches him off guard, acknowledging that he is the infamous player, Nam. Seowoon admits he always wondered about Nam's gear and expected him to win it all. He never thought he would find the top dog in such a broken state. Desperate, Nam promises Seowoon the entire win if he just helps him out this one single time. Seowoon ignores the offer and pulls his dagger from subspace. He knows Nam's life chi will give him the ultimate advantage. Realizing his end is near, Nam lets out a terrified scream, begging Seowoon to stop because there are still plenty of dangerous players left out there in the game. Seowoon smiles and reveals his name so Nam knows exactly who is ending him. Nam screams in agony, swearing he will never forget what Seowoon has done. But Seowoon ends it, driving his dagger straight into the guy's head to finish the job for good. As Nam takes his final breath, Seowoon feels a flicker of guilt, seeing how much like a kid he looks. You saw that too, right? The massive explosion of life chi from Nam's death shocks Seowoon to his very core. Seowoon begins absorbing the energy, realizing that Nam was basically a living, breathing human elixir. While he is busy soaking up all that energy, the system notifies every player that Nam is dead. Only 8 active players remain. The elf archer sees the notification and knows that with Nam finally gone, the remaining players finally have the freedom to move as they please. Meanwhile, Seowoon turns his attention to the legendary loot Nam dropped on the ground. With this much energy coursing through his body, Seowoon feels like he can face any opponent. He opens up the loot chest and is absolutely blown away by the items inside. He finds Kaiser's ring, an item that provides a massive boost to agility. He finds rings for strength, stamina, and even one for magic resistance. It is an absolute haul of legendary gear. Seowoon is speechless as he equips them all. He realizes Nam was hoarding all the best items in the entire game. He cannot believe Nam pretended not to be overgeared while he was busy terrorizing every other player in the server. After equipping the rings, Seowoon checks his status window and is hit with a massive shock. His stats have skyrocketed. With this kind of power, Seowoon is finally confident that he actually has a real shot at winning. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how he uses those new martial arts manuals. Alright, you and I are about to see how a zero-to-hero legend handles impossible skill requirements. Right as he senses someone nearby, a fireball comes screaming out of nowhere to hit him from behind. A mage appears behind Seowoon and mocks him for dropping his guard, saying he must have been lucky killing Nam since he looks like a total idiot. Surprisingly, the attack does absolutely nothing, and Seowoon just turns around calmly to ask the terrified mage who the hell he even thinks he is. Seowoon mocks the guy, revealing his secret. His magic resistance is already at a staggering 90 points. As Seowoon starts walking closer, the mage freaks out and begs him to stay back. He threatens another flame spell if Seowoon takes a step, but our hero just ignores him. The mage follows through, but his flames are useless, so he unleashes a massive explosion spell instead. Now pay attention, he gets close and activates his brand new move, the legendary piercing fist. He punches the guy so hard his chest caves in, turning his internal organs upside down. The mage is sent flying and is finally stopped by a massive tree. Seowoon is shocked that the martial arts he didn't even think twice about turned out amazing, scaling based on his inner energy. One punch was enough to kill him, and the player count drops to 7. He realizes that average mages are now harmless to him thanks to that 90-point magic resistance. With Nam dead, everyone hiding in the shadows is coming out. It is going to be a long night. Seowoon leaps into the trees, jumping through branches like Dune thanks to his incredible new energy reserves. An hour later, while hidden in his cloak, he hears some loudmouth screaming his name, demanding he come out and fight like a man. The dude turns out to be a swordsman, Stanko, who is there to avenge his fallen friend while blocking a surprise arrow from the dark. He trash-talks the hidden attacker, calling them a coward for the ambush, right before spotting the elven archer, Zurokana, in the tree. Zurokana is surprised he is recognized, but Stanko calls him a legendary mercenary known throughout the lands. Stanko then suggests they team up together to take Seowoon down first. Zuro thinks for a minute, then jumps down to accept the offer. Stanko welcomes him, introducing himself and promising that he made the right choice. Stanko brags about his guild fame, telling Zuro he definitely won't regret this partnership. Deep down, Stanko has another agenda, believing Zuro is a total moron. Meanwhile, Zuro starts counting something weird on his fingers. He is right in the middle of counting when Stanko suddenly starts mocking him, telling him that an archer should never have come this close to a swordsman. He swings his blade. But you saw that coming, right? An arrow tears through Stanko's head before his weapon can even move. Zuro mocks the corpse, saying there is no way he would team up with trash that even a passing stray dog would avoid. Zuro starts talking about how he needs to find Seowoon, but his target is right behind him, busy absorbing Stanko's chi, because every bit of energy is critical for his survival. Zuro turns around to stare right where Seowoon is hiding. Seowoon panics, wondering if his hiding cloak failed or if Zuro has some secret detection skill. Before his heart stops, Zuro just walks off, claiming that Stanko's loot is probably trash and not even worth his time. Seowoon collapses in pure relief because he genuinely thought he was done for. Zuro has insane senses and is clearly the next big threat. Later on, Seowoon realizes the restricted zone is getting much smaller. With 87 days left, he realizes the boundary moves based on how many survivors are still left alive. He reaches an open field and decides to be careful, knowing any fight on this flat ground will attract everyone nearby. As he turns to leave, a magic attack comes flying toward him. He dodges, but the aim was perfect. Trust me, you and I definitely need to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are about to watch our hero survive a literal magical storm. He panics, realizing there is absolutely no way he can dodge all these spells at once. Since he is backed into a corner, he takes a deep breath and prepares his piercing fist technique to strike back. Seowoon shatters the incoming magic and stands there shocked by how much stronger he has actually become. He leaps high into the air to scout for his attacker, quickly spotting the guy hiding up in a nearby tree. Meanwhile, the attacker is panicking because he burned all his mana on that last strike and failed to kill Seowoon. Suddenly, another player appears from the shadows and drives a blade through the mage's chest, killing him instantly. The newcomer mocks him, saying he should have saved some mana for a shield or at least a detection spell. Turns out, this new guy is a professional assassin, and staying hidden is basically his second nature. With the mage gone, only 5 players remain, and Seowoon has officially made the top 5 as the assassin calls his name. Seowoon is surprised the killer knows him. The assassin laughs, saying it is obvious since he killed the #1 public enemy, Nam. Now, the whole field is hunting him. He tells Seowoon to just give up and die quietly because he has never once failed to take out a target. The killer lunges forward with twin sickles, and Seowoon braces himself for the inevitable impact. Now watch closely. He is faster than anything we have seen. The assassin slices through Seowoon before he can even react. He actually praises Seowoon, surprised that the strike did not cut him clean in half like it should have. Seowoon knows he barely survived. If he hadn't focused his internal energy, his arm would be lying on the ground. He has to admit this guy is a beast. The assassin promises he won't survive another round in the pitch-black darkness. The second he mentions the darkness, Seowoon remembers his cloak of hiding. As he realizes this, the assassin literally vanishes into thin air right before his eyes. The killer reappears behind Seowoon, ready to finish the job, but he is just a second too late. Seowoon activates his own cloak and disappears, leaving the assassin screaming in confusion and looking for his target. Seowoon admits the guy's stealth is decent, but it is nothing compared to the power of a legendary hiding cloak. Before the killer can react, Seowoon appears behind him and delivers a brutal, driving stab. The guy tries to call Seowoon a coward for attacking from behind, but Seowoon just reminds him of his death threat. And yeah, you and I knew that desperate team-up offer was never going to work. Seowoon does not hesitate for a second and impales him, ending the assassin's killing spree right there. Now only 4 players are left, and Seowoon begins the process of absorbing their chi. He grabs the dropped healing scrolls and loots the bodies fast, knowing the noise he made will bring more enemies soon. Seowoon finds a shadow clone manual in the loot. This incredible skill lets the user create a physical clone that is actually capable of fighting in battle. The total number of clones just depends on how much internal energy the user has. The system asks to learn it, and Seowoon realizes how lucky he was the assassin didn't know about chi. If that killer had used clones, Seowoon probably would not have made it out alive. From the mage, he finds a grimoire called Carmen's Eyes, a top-tier spell that sees through any stealth. Unfortunately, he cannot learn it yet since his magic circle is not high enough. That explains how the mage saw through his cloak. Suddenly, an arrow whistles past his head and grazes his cheek. He immediately knows who is firing. Only one remains, and that is Zuro. But before he can even react, a massive magical blast rains down. He has never seen magic this powerful before, and he knows it is already too late to run. He pours every last drop of his internal energy into his fist for one final, ultimate piercing strike. By giving it everything he has, he manages to tank the massive explosion. It is a 2-on-1 ambush. Stick with me for the next part. Alright, stick with me, this 1 versus 3 battle is about to get absolutely wild. Seowoon barely dodges the strike, only to realize he is being triple-teamed by some of the world's strongest. His enemies are a nightmare trio, the divine archer Zurachana, the demon king's general Chiron, and Senturk, the king of Cryon. Caught in a desperate spot, Seowoon is left wondering how he can possibly survive. Our main character is frustrated that his victory was snatched away by teamers, but he knows he has to trick them into betraying each other. Since he has never met them before, figuring out their complex relationships is going to be a massive challenge for him. Chiron offers a polite greeting to Senturk, but the king tells him to get lost, calling him a lowly magician. Chiron reminds Senturk that status is nothing compared to the rewards they can get if they just work together for once. Now pay attention here, this is where Seowoon realizes they aren't actually allies at all and uses his cloak to hide in a bush while planning his escape. Senturk tells Chiron they need to deal with Seowoon's stealth before they even think about talking about a truce. Chiron tells the king not to worry, claiming he is the perfect man for a job like this. Raising his hands, Chiron casts a magic spell that summons a miniature sun, bathing the entire area in light to reveal everything. Senturk actually commends the mage, admitting he is smarter than he looks. Seowoon starts to freak out, never imagining a simple light spell could make his cloak of hiding completely useless. Chiron mentions he is glad Nam took care of Escrow, who would have been a real headache to handle. Then, he lets Seowoon know that it is his time to die for the Demon King. Chiron unleashes a massive magical blast and lunges. Seowoon panics but tries his best to find a way out of this. He remembers that mages are weak up close. If he can just bridge the gap, he plans to trap Chiron in his own magic. Seowoon charges forward, determined to turn this into a close-quarters brawl at any cost. Chiron sees the play and forces his magic directly toward the approaching main character. But Seowoon is not quitting. He wraps his body in as much internal energy as possible to tank the incoming damage. He is ready to push through that magic attack no matter what the cost. Suddenly, a notification warns him his cloak is damaged and won't work until it is fully repaired. Seowoon can't believe his internal energy is failing and he just lost his most valuable gear. Thinking he won, Chiron stops his assault. He is certain no one could survive a direct hit like that. Suddenly, Seowoon bursts out from the explosion, and before the mage can react, Seowoon is already right in his face. He looks like a bloody mess, but Chiron binds him with undead hands. Seowoon admits this guy is way stronger than any mage he's fought before. To break free, Seowoon activates a shadow clone, completely catching the arrogant mage off guard. Chiron thought Seowoon was just a simple brawler. He freezes in fear as our hero leaps at him. You and I saw this coming, right? Senturk stabs Chiron from behind, his blade piercing straight through the mage and into Seowoon too. Chiron is disgusted that a king would be so cowardly, but Senturk just says there is no honor greater than winning. Besides, Senturk reminds him that he never actually promised to be on his side. He mocks the dying mage, thanking him for being the perfect bait for Seowoon. Senturk turns to Zoro-chana on the cliff, claiming they are the final two, but she just smiles and tells him he's celebrating way too early. Senturk is confused until Seowoon suddenly reappears right beside him, landing a punch so powerful it sends the king flying. Senturk's armor shatters into pieces as he slams into a distant wall. With Senturk buried in the rubble, Seowoon knows it is just him and Zoro-chana. She commends him for surviving that blade, realizing the man she thought was dead was just a clone. But Seowoon is done talking and tells her to fight. Zoro-chana tells him to be patient because there is still some unfinished business to attend to. It turns out Senturk survived that devastating hit. Even though he's covered in blood, he still looks like he's in prime condition. Senturk is shocked Seowoon is alive, swearing he felt his sword connect before realizing that it was actually just a fake clone. Trust me, you and I need to see if Seowoon can survive these two monsters in the end. Alright, you and I are about to watch a brutal showdown. Seowoon sheds his shirt, telling Senturk to shut up before asking if they're attacking together or one at a time. Senturk sneers back, warning Seowoon that he's going to regret making him get serious. In a blink, Senturk vanishes, closing the gap before our hero can even process the movement. The next thing Seowoon feels is cold steel piercing his left arm. Senturk gloats that when it comes to raw speed, absolutely nobody can best him. He smugly explains that disabling the arm was the plan from the very beginning. Seowoon watches in horror as his shoulder is hit. He completely misread the guy, thinking he was just a slow strength type rather than a speedster. Still, he's not losing today. He worked too hard to get here, so he bets everything on the burning energy within his core. Without a second thought, Seowoon snaps the rapier and yanks the broken metal out of his own flesh. He fires it back with a chi palm strike. The shard slices Senturk's face, and let me tell you, he is furious that his precious looks are ruined. Seowoon doesn't hesitate, immediately tearing open a healing scroll to mend his mangled arm. Left with a broken weapon, Senturk ignites his aura blade, actually praising Seowoon for being strong enough to force his hand like this. Seowoon gets back up, ready to go all out. He triggers Shadow Clone, summoning 8 identical copies to the field. Senturk admits these tricks are annoying, but he's still dead certain he'll be the one left standing. Seowoon just calls him a fraud, telling him to prepare himself because he's about to see what real power looks like. Senturk laughs it off, agreeing that it's finally time to settle this without any more delays. Deep down, Senturk knows his aura blade only has a 2-minute time limit. If he wants to survive this, he has to end the entire fight before that clock runs out. Meanwhile, Seowoon realizes his energy is almost tapped out. He knows he has to end this fast, so he lunges straight for Senturk. Senturk aims his blade, but Seowoon pulls a fast one, appearing behind him to land a massive back-breaking punch. Senturk spins around in a rage, but the body he strikes just dissolves into smoke. He's stunned. How is that a clone when he literally felt the impact of his own hits? Senturk decides screw it, he'll just slaughter every single clone until there's nothing left but the real body. Now pay attention, because right as he's thinking that, Seowoon appears out of nowhere and cracks him right in the jaw. The hit is so brutal, it leaves Senturk reeling, wondering if he just finally found the real one. Seowoon reads him like a book, telling him to stop guessing because every single one of these clones can hit like a truck. They're basically identical to the original, and there is no way for Senturk to tell the difference. 2 clones team up for a combined strike, but Senturk barely manages to leap back and dodge. With them exposed, he swings his aura blade, vaporizing both clones in one go. He realizes their defense is trash. Now he's only got 5 more clones to deal with. But the clock is ticking, only 1 minute remains for his aura blade. From the sidelines, Zoro can't believe Senturk is struggling this much. Can you believe this? Senturk actually screams for Zoro to hop in so they can jump Seowoon together. He promises Zoro anything he wants once they get back home, as long as he helps him win. Zoro just tells him to keep his head in the game as Seowoon rushes in again. He unleashes his aura blade, but Seowoon ducks low, letting the deadly energy wave sail harmlessly overhead. Seowoon counters with a powerful palm strike, but to his horror, the attack is parried. He is completely wide open. Senturk doesn't waste a single second, driving his sword straight into Seowoon's chest to leave a massive hole in his body. But before he can celebrate, Seowoon vanishes again. It was just another fake. Senturk is devastated. He finally realizes that Seowoon has been playing with him this entire time. He completely snaps from the humiliation, yelling that he doesn't even care about winning the fight anymore. Going full berserk, he vows to tear Seowoon limb from limb with every ounce of his power. Watching from afar, Zoro realizes that Senturk has officially become the terrifying king of madness. And trust me, we're about to see pure chaos as Senturk explodes with insane speed, shredding 2 Seowoons in a single strike. Alright, You and I are watching as Seowoon narrows it down to the final two, the real body and his last clone. Both Seowoons charge in, throwing heavy punches. Senturk reacts fast and manages to snag the one attacking from the right, but he shouldn't celebrate yet. The moment he lands the blow, he realizes he just took out another fake. That leaves only the figure on the left. Senturk is certain this has to be the real Seowoon. They both lunge forward at once, looking to end this entire bloodbath with a single, decisive strike. Senturk swings, but Seowoon uses his feet to block the impact. Senturk gives him credit for his combat skills, but he is still hiding one last trick up his sleeve. Senturk finally unleashes his aura blade. The lightning form generates a terrifying surge of destructive energy that absolutely shatters Seowoon's body into pieces. Seowoon hits the floor, begging Senturk to stop. He warns him that Zero is the only one winning if they keep killing each other. Senturk does not care. He drives his sword straight through his chest, obliterating Seowoon right then and there. His aura blade flickers out immediately after. He thanks his lucky stars. He finished the job just before his energy ran completely dry. Now pay attention. As Senturk starts to celebrate, he realizes something is horribly wrong. It hits him like a ton of bricks. Killing that Seowoon did not feel like taking down a real human body. Suddenly, the real Seowoon appears behind him and grabs his skull. With one brutal shove, he shatters Senturk's head, ending the fight instantly and securing the win. Standing over the body, Seowoon admits he would have lost if those clones hadn't drained Senturk's strength first. Now it is just Seowoon and Zero left. Zero chuckles, genuinely surprised that Seowoon actually managed to take Senturk down. Zero actually thanks him, calling Senturk a total pain in the neck to handle. But he points out that Seowoon is done. He has burned through all his energy fighting that stubborn warrior. Zero calmly levels his bow, letting Seowoon know it is time for him to die right here. Seowoon watches in terror as a high-speed arrow screams toward his head. But just before it connects, he manages to absorb all the remaining energy from Senturk's corpse. It is not as much power as he took from Nam earlier, but it is enough. He triggers his shadow clone skill again, splitting into multiple bodies and lunging directly at Zero to end this once and for all. Zero is annoyed to see that same old trick again. He draws his bow back with a cold, confident smirk. He looses an arrow straight at his target, but this time, it is no fake clone. The bolt pierces Seowoon's real leg. He loses his balance and crashes hard onto the dirt. You and I are watching Seowoon's nightmare. Zero promises there is no escape, then proves it by firing arrows through his hands, pinning him to the cold ground. Seowoon screams in agony, demanding to know how Zero picked out the real him so fast. Zero just smiles, claiming it was a lucky guess. Seowoon is stunned, but the next arrow is already aimed at his skull. Zero praises him for managing to survive all the way to the very end of the line. He offers his respect, but Seowoon just spits at him. Zero fires, and the arrow ends Seowoon's life instantly, with one clean shot to the head. Just like that, it's over. Zero claims the ultimate victory by taking Seowoon down. Seowoon wakes up in the waiting room, forced to watch a replay of Zero standing over his corpse. He is fuming. He did all the heavy lifting, only for Zero to come in at the very end to steal the win. But honestly, he did the same thing to Nam earlier. The system chimes in, congratulating Seowoon for reaching the top 2 survivors. He is told he is qualified for the next round. This confirms his fears. The game is far from over. Seowoon finds out that with all his kill bonuses, he has earned 140 reward coins. He is confused about these coins until the system summons every single item he looted during the match. Looking at the pile, Seowoon realizes he actually managed to snag some incredible high-tier loot. But there is a catch. He has to spend his coins to actually keep any of these items. He checks the shadow clone technique and nearly has a heart attack. It costs 130 coins, which is almost everything he has. Luckily, the top 5 players get a chance to spin a roulette wheel for a free random item. Seowoon can't believe there is actually a catch. Even better, since he came in second place, he gets 2 whole spins on the wheel. He is thrilled. This is his chance to save his coins if he can land the shadow clone or the cloak. The wheel begins to blur, and the first item that flashes across the screen is the shadow clone. Seowoon screams for it to stop, but it lands on a necklace instead. Trust me, you and I need to see what's next. Alright, you and I are about to watch our main character lose his mind after pulling the absolute cheapest loot possible. He can't believe he looted all that high-tier gear just to get stuck with garbage, but then, he realizes he has one last shot. He immediately starts praying to every god out there for some actual luck. The wheel spins, and as it passes the subspace ring, he screams for it to stop, but the thing just keeps on rolling. Against all odds, it lands on the shadow clone skill, and Seowoon starts celebrating like a complete lunatic. He knows this is huge because shadow clone is the priciest item available, leaving his coins free for other goodies. With the shadow clone technique in hand, the system prompts him to spend his remaining coins on extra gear. Before the automatic transfer kicks in, he carefully sifts through his loot, to make sure he's not just picking items at random. Shopping is finally done, and the system wishes him the best of luck in the next round. Seowoon rockets through the void, and in a flash, he's standing right back in the alleyway where he first vanished. Sitting right there in his palm is the subspace ring, proving once and for all that this wasn't just some crazy dream. He slides the ring on and grabs his bag. As he heads out, a smirk creeps onto his face because he can feel a massive change within himself. Now, you and I know the next game is coming, and Seowoon is dead set on taking first place, no matter the cost. He makes his way to the small studio apartment his parents rented for him right near the school. He was supposed to be cramming for an English test while getting ready for classes, but now, his only goal is getting stronger, using the insane loot he brought back from the game. The second he hits his room, he drops into a lotus position. There is no way he is playing the next round like a rookie. He notices his energy core is bone dry, and wonders if the final battle drained every bit of his power. He decides to use the cultivation method the old man taught him to recover as much energy as possible. Seowoon recalls the master's words, remembering how the old man wanted to see if he actually had what it takes to reach those legendary heights. 4 hours into his meditation session, Seowoon lets out a frustrated groan because the amount of inner energy he's managed to gather is pathetic. Reality is nothing like the game world, and at this rate, it'll take him literal years just to feel a spark of power inside. Not wanting to waste any more time, he starts organizing the items he brought back. Looking through his gear, he can't help but wish he'd secured a better martial art than this one. It hits him that he might have to train this technique slowly, just like his inner energy. If that's the case, becoming a powerhouse is going to take a very long time. But then the system asks if he wants to learn the skill, and trust me, we're both realizing the game system works in reality too. He starts shadowboxing around the room, performing the martial art moves with precision. Once he finishes, he realizes the moves feel empty without any inner energy backing them up. He checks his inventory again, and notices Escrow's necklace is sitting right there among his stuff. Since it's supposed to be pure gold, he gives it a quick bite to check, and turns out, it's the real deal. Based on the weight alone, this gold has to be worth at least 10 million won. He spent only 1 coin on this, yet it's worth a fortune in the real world. His inner goblin comes out as he realizes he could become filthy rich just by bringing back 10 of these. The necklace might be trash in the game, but here, it is a literal gold mine. Another item he got was refined troll blood, which guarantees a full year of perfect health for anyone who drinks it. He only grabbed it because it sounded useful, but if he sells it to some desperate billionaire, he can name his price. At this point, Seowoon is convinced that this game is his one ticket to the top. Suddenly, his stomach starts growling like crazy. He's been eating absolute garbage in the game, but he was so focused on cultivating that he didn't even notice the hunger. It's time for a real meal, so he heads over to Grandma's diner to order a full set. He's served the 5,001 meal that he used to think was a total luxury. You and I can practically taste it. He's in tears because real food beats eating dry jerky every day. Alright, you and I are diving into a story where a gamer brings broken skills to reality. Grandma tells him to stop crying before it ruins his appetite. Since he ate here yesterday, Seowoon just tells her the food is so delicious it actually brought him to tears. It finally hits him that the time passed in the game world does not carry over into his real life. Once finished, he thanks the old woman. She tells him to stop whining but warmly invites him to come back again soon. Walking home, Seowoon wonders when the next round starts. He needs to cultivate way more inner energy before the next game begins. He suddenly remembers he brought back the Ring of Strength and decides to test it out. He puts it on, curious if game items work in the real world. To test it, Seowoon tries a simple jump. To his shock, he rockets high into the air before slamming back down to the ground. He can't believe the raw power surging through his veins. He just hopes nobody saw that crazy leap. If his strength gets reported, he is in deep trouble. Seowoon heads back to his room to try something even more dangerous that he had been avoiding. He has changed his mind now. Everything from the game seems to translate perfectly into his actual life. Now, pay attention here. Seowoon pulls out his most expensive treasure, the Elixir of Insight, which cost him 50 coins. He remembers back in the game. Taking this potion meant he could not move for 3 hours as his insides felt like liquid fire. Seowoon gulps it down, and the potion hasn't even hit his stomach before it kicks into high gear. Raw energy bursts from his body as he screams in pure agony. 3 hours later, a concerned neighbor calls the police because the shared wall is literally heating up. She tells the 2 officers that she tried knocking on Seowoon's door multiple times, but the handle was too hot to touch. The cops tell her she should have called the fire department instead. She defends herself, pointing out it was boiling hot, but there were no actual flames. The officer tells her not to worry. Maybe Seowoon just turned his boiler up way too high today. The old lady stands her ground. To end the argument, one officer walks over to check the door himself. He grabs the handle and instantly screams as the metal sears his hand. The old lady finally gets to drop her "I told you so" line. The officers start shouting for whoever is inside, demanding that Seowoon open the door immediately. Siwoon slowly opens the door, and the officers are stunned to see him drenched in a massive amount of sweat. He just claims he had a bad fever and turned up the heat to sweat it out. His face is beet red, yet he has the nerve to tell them they should have called the fire department, not the police. The cops say they have to respond to complaints, then ask if he needs an ambulance for that fever. Siwoon refuses, saying it is just a mild cold and he will be perfectly fine after some rest. Since he insists he is okay, the police decide to just head out. As they leave, they tell the old lady to stop calling for minor issues that just waste their time. Siwoon shuts the door and crashes to the ground, thinking about how he nearly just died. You and I saw how intense that was. That elixir energy was pure fire, and only his white martial physique art saved him. This confirms that real life is way riskier than the game. Regardless, he needs to test out his brand new skills. He activates his unstoppable fist, swinging his palm forward. A massive shockwave erupts and completely obliterates his chair. Siwoon sees how powerful his techniques are, but he has a new problem. He needs to sell some loot just to afford a replacement for his broken furniture. The next day, he heads to a public gym to train, but quickly realizes the crowds make it a huge mistake. Mid-training, he spots a group of high school delinquents causing a scene. Their leader is smoking, and an old man approaches to tell him students shouldn't be doing that. The punk rudely tells the man to buzz off, saying even his own parents do not nag him about smoking. The old man fires back that his parents clearly did a terrible job raising him. That immediately pisses the guy off. Siwoon sees the delinquent raise his arm to slap the old man, but he comes out of nowhere, hitting the dude with a massive kick to the face. The dude is sent crashing into a wall, leaving him totally helpless. Siwoon tells the guy he has no right to hit an elder, regardless of how rude they were. But then, trust me, you and I need to see what is next. A massive delinquent appears, and things just got way more complicated. Stick with me, you're about to see Siwoon realize he's just way too strong for his own good. This massive guy asks Siwoon if he's the one who laid a hand on his younger brother. Siwoon doesn't back down, firing back that the brother started it by being disrespectful to his elders. He tells the guy that high schoolers need to learn that smoking in public leads to serious trouble. Siwoon laughs, telling him he should have educated his brother better, and even though he went overboard, he had to. Siwoon is still yapping when the big guy suddenly lunges forward with a massive punch. But Siwoon effortlessly dodges and lands a counterpunch that literally sends the dude flying through the air. The big guy coughs up blood in agony, and Siwoon panics he totally forgot to control his strength. Instead of staying down, the guy loses it and pulls a butterfly knife, screaming he'll kill Seowoon. Siwoon sees the weapon and realizes these two brothers are exactly the same pure trouble. The big guy rushes in swinging, but Siwoon just dances around every single desperate attack with ease. As the fight drags on, Siwoon realizes that taking on ordinary people is becoming way too easy. Fed up with the wild swinging, Siwoon drops low and sweeps the guy's feet right out from under him. Before landing another hit, he knows he has to hold back, or this could end in total disaster. Now, pay attention, he decides to use just 50% strength with his undefeated palm strike. Even at half power, the guy is launched into a tree, leaving his face completely wrecked. Everyone watching is in total shock, immediately pulling out their phones to record the carnage. But Siwoon is the most shocked of all, since he never intended to hurt the guy this badly. He nervously tells the unconscious dude to stop faking before warning the brothers to behave from now on. Before things get even more complicated, Siwoon bolts from the scene. But as he leaves, he starts regretting showing his power to a civilian, knowing his life would be over if they had died. Siwoon realizes right then that he needs serious training to master his overwhelming strength. A month later, Siwoon is meditating at home when his mother calls to check if he's eaten yet. She explains she was getting worried because she hadn't heard from him in a while. She asks about the academy, and he just tells her that everything is manageable. He obviously can't tell her the truth that he's been grinding martial arts instead of studying books. When Siwoon asks about his dad, his mom drops the bombshell. He was just in a terrible car accident. Siwoon completely freaks out, desperately asking how bad it is and what exactly happened. She reveals it happened during a delivery when a car ran a red light and smashed into him. The surgery costs are going to be astronomical, and the family is already drowning in worry. Now, you and I can see how desperate things are when she asks Siwoon for his allowance money. Siwoon stays calm and asks for the total cost, which she says is around 1 or 2 million won. He grabs escrow's necklace from his storage, telling his mom not to worry because he has a solution. Siwoon promises to call her right back and immediately charges out of his room. He thinks about how his parents spent their lives renting homes, while his dad worked harder than anyone. But as his father got older, his income dropped, forcing him to bounce between replaceable jobs. Siwoon breaks down in tears, feeling like he's been nothing but a burden to his family since day one. But that stops today. He reaches a jewelry shop and asks the attendant for a price on the necklace. The woman examines the piece and admits the craftsmanship is absolutely incredible. Since it doesn't look local, Siwoon lies and says it's been a family heirloom for 5 generations. He cuts her off to ask for the value, and she warns him it might be worth even more. Seowoon explains his father needs surgery, so he has no choice but to sell it immediately. Since he lacks a certificate and needs cash fast, the lady decides to help him out. They finalize the deal, and Seowoon walks away with over 10 million won in his hands. You and I just saw a massive win with that money. His parents won't have to worry anymore. Alright, stick with me. You and I are about to see how grabbing some quick cash is just the start of a wild journey for our main character. Seowoon realizes he needs a much better strategy for selling the legendary items he brings back from the game world. He immediately sends the money to his mother and gives her a call to let her know it has arrived. His mom is completely floored when she sees the balance, frantically asking where he could have possibly gotten that much cash. She worries he took out a shady loan, but he lies, telling her it is just money he saved up during his army service. His mother apologizes for being a burden, but he tells her to stop worrying, promising that he will be coming to the hospital for a visit very soon. Later, while taking the train home, Seowoon overhears some guys talking about a viral video circulating online. It shows a man actually firing a massive fireball straight out of his palm. Everyone watching is terrified, but Seowoon stays calm because he knows that is clearly a high-level spell from Coal Survival. Now, pay attention here, because this is the exact moment Seowoon realizes he is not the only one in Korea being pulled into the game. The video suddenly gets nuked, and the guys mention how every upload of this footage keeps getting deleted by some mysterious force. Elsewhere, an agency is scrambling to deal with all the game footage being uploaded to the web. The boss demands an update, only to find out that the number of survivors has surged dramatically, making them nearly impossible to track effectively. Fuming, the boss hurls an ashtray at his subordinate, screaming that their agent count should have increased along with the new survivors. In addition, he orders them to hunt down the person uploading the videos. Assuming they are just some desperate attention seeker looking for fame, the agent promises to get it done, but his boss just keeps right on screaming at him. He warns the man to stop bleeding on his expensive carpet or he will kill him himself, while another agent steps in to heal the wound with his magic. In the end, the boss bellows at his underlings to get moving and bring this entire situation under control immediately. A month later, Seowoon hasn't taken a single day off from his training. He has managed to gather a massive amount of inner energy and he is finally starting to feel comfortable using it. His main problem is that his current energy levels only allow for one shadow clone, and it barely lasts for any time at all. Still, he uses that clone as a sparring partner to make his training as efficient as humanly possible. The sessions are always short though, because his shadow clone tends to vanish way too quickly. He is frustrated, remembering how he controlled 8 shadows at once during his legendary battle against Center. He wonders if he burned out too much inner energy in the last battle because his current core feels pretty pitiful. After finishing for the night, Seowoon heads home to cultivate, knowing there is no point in sulking over his lost strength. Feeling hungry after the workout, he checks his subspace storage to see if there is anything useful tucked away inside. Suddenly, a blinding light erupts from the storage space, and he is instantly warped into a game lobby filled with other players. He looks around and notices that there are way more confused people here than during his very first time in the game. You saw that too, right? A thank you message pops up on the screen while he is still wondering if this is actually happening. The system then announces that the official game tutorial is finally about to be explained. Seowoon is stunned because the tutorial was completely skipped during his previous run through the game. He smirks, realizing there are plenty of fresh beginners this time around, then spots a high school kid casually sitting on top of a massive statue. Based on the uniform, it is pretty clear the boy is a high school student from right there in Korea. Seowoon ignores him, figuring he is just trying to act cool for attention, which is pretty typical for kids these days. Still, he can tell that this kid has definitely played the game before. He just hopes that the boy is not anywhere near as powerful as the legendary Nam. Moments later, they are told 200 players are competing, and just reaching the top 200 is the lowest difficulty. The match will take place in the Valley of Contras, with rewards starting at rank 20. Seeing this, Seowoon realizes there is basically zero risk of failing at all. And since he cannot really lose, he decides he is just going to play this entire round like an absolute psycho. Once the tutorial ends, Seowoon prepares himself to be thrown straight into the middle of the game world. But then, a massive curveball drops. The system informs everyone that this is a duo game, and they must find a partner to register. Essentially, so what do you and I think? Is Seowoon about to carry a lucky rookie to the very end of this insane survival match? Alright, you and I are heading back into the arena, where players have just 5 minutes to pair up or go solo. Seowoon realizes the player count has spiked, which explains why the system is pushing everyone into these duo teams. But he isn't exactly sold on teamwork. If his partner ends up being trash, they will just be dead weight. He considers teaming with that high schooler who seemed promising. But by the time he looks back at the statue, the kid is gone. Left with no choice, he decides to just find anyone willing to watch his back for the round. He starts scouting the crowd for a partner, but it looks like everyone has already paired up. Seowoon keeps searching until the very last second, but he comes up completely empty-handed. Fine, he will just face the challenge alone. Without wasting another second, the match starts and the players are all deployed into the game. While falling, Seowoon spots several villages scattered across the valley that look like prime spots for looting, and he locks onto his target. He plans to land and immediately crush anyone who dares to cross his path. The moment his boots hit the dirt, he spots 3 rival teams landing right in his immediate vicinity. Seowoon wastes no time charging toward a landing zone, having spent his downtime replaying every detail of the first game. Now watch this. He has run countless mental simulations for this exact moment, and he is more than ready. He finds a player still reeling from motion sickness and appears behind him, delivering a brutal punch to the spine. The guy screams in agony, wondering why he is being targeted, but Seowoon just ignores the noise and knocks him out cold. Suddenly, the system alerts him to finish the job, warning that a teammate could still revive the fallen player. Seowoon likes this mechanic. But just as he delivers the final blow, the victim's partner lunges out of the shadows. This guy is built like a tank, and he charges at Seowoon with enough force to send a chill down his spine. Seowoon is nearly knocked back, but he digs his heels in and maintains a solid stance to keep his balance. The enemy is clad in heavy armor and brandishes a massive lance. He demands to know if Seowoon killed his friend, but Seowoon stays silent, scanning for a weakness. By the way he carries himself, Seowoon can tell this guy is a seasoned specialist in close-quarters combat. But because of his own unique skill, the unstoppable fist which relies on bare hands, the biggest challenge is figuring out how to bypass weapons like long spears or swords. Technically, fighting weapons unarmed is suicide, but Seowoon has been perfecting a counter technique through intense image training. Instead of backing down, Seowoon actually starts smiling. He finally has the chance to test his theory in a real fight. The armored player thrusts his lance forward, and Seowoon lunges straight into the line of fire. Right as the sharp tip is about to pierce him, he uses his palm to deflect the lance and create a massive opening for a counter. The guy is stunned to see Seowoon effortlessly altering the trajectory of his lethal attack. Before he can react, Seowoon delivers a devastating spatial strike, a palm blast that rips a hole clean through his chest. Seowoon immediately crushes the man's helmet and finishes him off with a brutal stomp, wiping the entire team out. The moment the guy dies, a massive wave of chi is released, and Seowoon is shocked by the sheer amount. Trust me, nothing beats that rush of absorbing pure chi in this game. With that team eliminated, Seowoon calculates that only 4 other players are still lurking in this village. Before he can even catch his breath, a stray arrow whistles toward his skull, but he ducks just in time. It thuds into the wall, and Seowoon immediately scans the area to track the shooter's trajectory. But before he can even shift his weight, another projectile comes screaming toward him. This shot is way closer, grazing his cheek and drawing blood as it zips past. Suddenly, a volley of arrows rains down on him, forcing him to bolt for the tree line. He can't believe how insanely accurate this sniper is from that distance. For a split second, he thinks he is facing Zoro again, but he quickly dismisses it. Whoever this archer is, they aren't quite on Zoro's legendary level yet. As he navigates the thick forest, he wonders if the shooter is a lone wolf, or if a teammate is closing in. Honestly, he is not worried. The second he pins down the archer, the partner is bound to reveal themselves. Seowoon eventually reaches the rooftops, reflecting on how much his mindset has shifted since the last round. Back then, he would have just been hiding and scavenging for loot, but now, he is strictly hunting for more chi to increase his power. To him, every enemy is just fuel waiting to be harvested. But then thwack! An arrow pierces right through the center of his skull. Wait for it, something is wrong. The archer thought he had a kill shot, but Seowoon has already vanished from the rooftop. You and I are jumping straight into a battle of shadows. Before he can react, Seowoon infiltrates his hiding spot and delivers a powerful kick that sends the guy crashing into the dirt. But wait, Seowoon instantly realizes he didn't actually hit the real target. The enemy suddenly appears behind him, revealing he was using a cloak of hiding this whole time. He unleashes a volley of arrows, but Seowoon effortlessly dances through the projectiles. Panicked, the archer leaps from the building, desperately trying to put distance between them, but Seowoon is right on his heels. He maneuvers ahead, cutting the guy off, and mocks him for being foolish enough to use a stealth cloak in broad daylight. Seowoon tells the archer he should have just camped if he wanted to win. He prepares to finish him, but the archer's teammate suddenly arrives. Now, Seowoon is caught in a pincer attack between an archer and a guy wielding twin swords. He starts to regret not finishing the archer off before backup could arrive. There is no point in dwelling on it, though it's now a 2 versus 1 showdown. Suddenly, a realization hits him with his skills. He's actually the one with the numbers advantage. As they charge, Seowoon triggers a shadow clone and bolts. The archer bites the bait, firing a triple shot that deletes the illusion. Watch closely here, because this is where everything flips for our archer. Seowoon appears behind him like a ghost, piercing his chest before the guy can even blink. He mocks the archer, saying that eyes are easily deceived. With the archer out of the picture, Seowoon turns his attention to the twin sword wielder. The swordsman is convinced he is fighting an illusionist because of these strange, high-level tricks. Seowoon casually explains he is just a returning student, and if the guy wants to save his buddy, he has to win. The warrior rushes in with incredible speed, swearing not only to win, but to ensure he is the one who survives until the very end. He unleashes a double strike, and Seowoon readies a counter. But his plan completely misses the mark because he severely underestimated how fast this opponent actually is. The guy gets dangerously close, slipping right behind him. Seowoon knows he would be dead right now if his inner energy hadn't protected his vitals. The player spins around, admitting he is impressed that Seowoon wasn't sliced in half, proving he has more than just illusions up his sleeve. He confidently warns Seowoon that he doesn't know how he survived that, but his head is coming off next. Seowoon calculates his next move, knowing if he can't get a clean kill, he needs a perfect counterattack. Let's pause here. You and I know what happens when there's no penalty for failing. Since the stakes are low, Seowoon decides it's the perfect time to attempt something extremely risky. Instead of tracking the enemy with his eyes, he chooses to sense his raw energy and killing intent. Seowoon closes his eyes as the opponent lunges. He knows he doesn't deserve the top spot if he can't overcome this early obstacle. After 2 months of intense inner energy practice, he has evolved into a completely different beast. By the time Seowoon opens his eyes, the fight is already over. He pins the swordsman down as the guy screams in frustration, wondering how his ultimate attack was blocked so easily. Seowoon slams his head into the pavement, realizing in that moment that he has finally shattered another personal wall. With 2 teams eliminated, the player count drops to 196. Seowoon gladly absorbs the massive inner energy left behind. He loots the archer, finding a recovery scroll and using it immediately to heal his wounds. However, he is gutted to find that the cloak of hiding was damaged during the fight. He knows that cloak was his ticket to the top, but he keeps it anyway, hoping it'll be useful later. Searching further, he discovers the legendary lightning-struck cottonwood bow, a weapon capable of firing arrows infused with faint electrical energy. Seowoon is confused by the description, since he didn't feel any lightning from the arrows the archer shot at him. He also finds a skill book for multi-shot, allowing him to fire several arrows at once. It turns out the original owner wasn't even an archer, he just picked up the skill in the game. Seowoon learns the skill and tests it out. The impact is devastating, making it clear this bow far outclasses his old crossbow. So we leave it there, and you and I both know the real war is just beginning. You and I are about to watch Seowoon loot this place dry. He finds nothing rare in the houses and assumes it is just basic village junk. He really wants a cloak of hiding. Looking out the window, he spots a tall tower in the center. That has to be the best place for loot. He heads over and finds the door locked, meaning nobody has stepped foot inside the tower yet. Entering the tower, he shuts the door behind him to stay safe and starts his climb to the top. Moments later, he reaches the peak and finds absolutely nothing useful. He is completely let down by the loot. He punches the wall in a rage, complaining about how game luck can really suck sometimes. Suddenly, he spots 2 guys below the tower, looting houses like they are the only players in the world. Seowoon wonders how to deal with them, but then the duo starts heading straight for his tower. They assume the tower is empty because the door is shut. They find a healing scroll and take it as a sign. Watching from above, Seowoon realizes he missed the scroll because there was just so much trash at the entrance. However, he is actually glad he missed it. It ended up becoming the perfect bait for his trap. Since they are celebrating over a trash-tier healing scroll, Seowoon realizes these guys are total noobs. Now, you and I need to watch this part. Seowoon doesn't hesitate for a second before diving down from the tower for a strike. The duo spots a shadow on the ground, and before they can blink, Seowoon crashes down right between them. Just by looking at them, and seeing the mage hasn't even cast a barrier yet, Seowoon knows this guy is garbage. He rushes the mage, but before he can finish him, the mage fires a flame blast. Seowoon dodges the strike, causing the mage to accidentally hit his own teammate with the fire. The teammate screams about being set on fire while the mage frantically apologizes, saying he was aiming for Seowoon. Once the fire dies down, they realize Seowoon is alone and decide to attack him together. The guy on fire swings his axe, but Seowoon dodges with ease. He keeps dodging, making the axe guy more and more furious. Seowoon lures him into position until the guy accidentally drives his axe right into his own teammate. The dude stammers an apology, and the mage says he knows it was an accident, but he needs that axe out now. Before he can move, Seowoon appears behind the mage and smashes his head in. Seowoon mocks him, thanking him for letting him get the killing blow on his friend. He wanted to take both out at once, but the axe guy's chest armor saved his life. With the armor gone, Seowoon wonders if he will be faster now that the heavy debuff is removed. The axe guy swings wildly, but Seowoon leaps up and comes down with a brutal kick to his head. He jumps back into the air, and the guy yells that he won't be able to stay up there forever. The moment Seowoon comes into his striking range again, The dude unleashes a massive aura strike that cuts through Seowoon and nearly destroys the entire building. Seowoon admits the guy is strong, but brute force isn't going to help him escape this situation. The player lunges again, screaming that he wants to see Seowoon talk when he is dead. You and I both know this trick. He is actually fighting a clone while the real Seowoon watches. The real Seowoon is right behind him, mocking him for trying to fight a shadow. Seowoon steps out of the building. The player finally notices him and yells, asking how he got there. But Seowoon ignores him and just looks at the building the guy almost cut in half with his axe. He teases the guy, asking him if he is curious about what happens if he kicks the tower. One powerful kick, and the guy is still asking stupid questions. Finally, it clicks. The person he was fighting this whole time wasn't even real. He screams in terror as he sees the tower falling, begging Seowoon to save his life. The tower crushes him instantly. Seowoon realizes he didn't get the kill credit because he died under the rubble. He calls himself a total idiot for not thinking the whole plan through properly. Luckily, the chests still spawn under the rubble. He is glad he doesn't have to dig around like a dog. Seowoon starts checking the chests, finding everything from magical rings to skill manuals. Looting finished. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are diving back into the madness as our main character finds a mage's robe that's totally useless for defense. He realizes the zone is shrinking and marks the map's center. After clearing out the rest of the houses and finding nothing else, Seowoon heads out. Even though it's a long trek, he's moving at high speed by mastering the same technique the old man used. A few moments later, Seowoon reaches an area and gets a notification that he's entered a monster spawn zone. It looks like certain maps have specific spots where these creatures crawl out. On top of that, a boss monster will show up, and taking it down means walking away with some high-tier loot. Seowoon realizes there are way more monsters here than in the last game, and he's not happy about the lack of a heads-up. Turns out, there are buff monsters lurking around too, not just bosses, and these guys give players powerful temporary boosts once they're defeated. Suddenly, a massive screech pierces the air, forcing him to cover his ears. Now pay attention, because Seowoon spots two players totally distracted by a monster swarm, the perfect chance for a sneak attack. He sees a duo consisting of a mage and a martial artist. Seowoon draws his bow, lining up a shot to end one of them. The two players are working together, taking out monsters while fighting back-to-back. The swordsman carves through them with blade skills while his mage teammate blasts the rest with bolts of lightning. Out of nowhere, an arrow streaks through the air, barely grazing the mage. The mage instantly knows they're being hunted and tells his partner to forget the monsters so they can deal with the sniper. But the swordsman is stubborn, insisting they finish the monsters first before worrying about whoever is taking shots at them. The mage loses it, screaming at him to forget the rewards because another player is about to ruin their whole run. Seowoon realizes these two are falling apart from the inside, so he decides to lean into the chaos even more. He lets loose a flurry of arrows, followed by a surge of lightning energy. The mage blocks the hit, and when the swordsman demands another barrier, the mage snaps back that he's already on it. However, he doesn't think his defense will last much longer, and suggests they make a run for it. The greedy swordsman won't hear it, arguing that if they bail now, they lose every single reward for the hunt. He tells the mage the loss is too high, and they need to finish the job before relocating. Just then, the barrier snaps, and the mage decides to throw up a massive defensive wall instead. The swordsman sees the wall and screams at the mage, asking what the hell he thinks he's doing. Let's pause here. Seowoon is actually loving this move because that wall just turned into a trap of their own making. From behind the wall, the mage argues that it's a better use of mana than constantly recasting flimsy barriers. The swordsman points out the obvious flaw. Now they have no idea where Seowoon is positioned. The mage thinks the wall will keep him out, but the swordsman reminds him that they basically just sent a flare to the enemy. The mage just tells him they have to keep fighting the monsters until the wall eventually fades. While still knee-deep in monsters, the swordsman warns his teammate that one more stupid move and this partnership is over. Right on cue, the wall proves useless as a rain of arrows comes pouring down on them. They barely survive the first wave, and the swordsman begs for the wall to be dropped, but it's locked for 5 minutes. Outside, Seowoon preps a magic explosion scroll with a 10-second fuse. He primes the scroll and ties it directly to one of his arrows. He counts down to 5 before launching the arrow. The two are still arguing when it lands between them, detonating in a massive explosion that shatters everything. One of the serpents lunges at Seowoon after the blast, but he shuts it down with a single shot. A few moments later, the mage crawls out of the debris, but he probably should have stayed down, since he looks up right into Seowoon's aiming arrow. Seowoon thanks them for putting up a wall because this is why he's going to be eating well tonight. The guy knows it's over and just closes his eyes as Seowoon sends an arrow straight through his head. A chest spawns immediately, letting Seowoon know the mage didn't survive the initial blast either. He checks the loot and finds a 7-star cultivation manual, which is the core of the 7-star sword art. The system asks to swap his current arts for the 7-star technique, but Seowoon refuses. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. Alright, Stick with me because Seowoon is about to turn a useless manual into a massive loot payday. He snags Tokar's ring from the chest, realizing it is the reason that dude survived the blast. After that, Seowoon starts digging through the rubble for the mage's treasure. Seowoon literally celebrates when he pops the chest open and finally finds Escrow's necklace. He also discovers a grimoire, but it is way too high tier for him to learn yet. Once he is done looting, he wipes out the serpents. Honestly, he is disappointed that those two were even struggling. After clearing the monsters, he notices that they actually dropped some items. He picks one up and sees it is called Tears of Lamia, a rare material used for crafting gear or conducting wild magic experiments. He also finds Tyron's necklace, which gives the user a solid boost to their agility. He knows the necklace is definitely useful, but he has no clue what those tears are for. Seowoon finds a quiet spot to cultivate his inner energy while planning to take out the buff monster for a massive advantage. But first, he needs to know if he is even strong enough to kill a boss. Plus, he has to figure out if other players are thinking the same thing. On day 2, he checks the player count and sees that 60 people have been wiped out already. Out of those 60, he only has 8 kills, which he thinks is pretty unimpressive. He decides to head toward the marker he placed at the center. As he treks through the desert, he starts missing the nice weather from Game 1. It is so hot out there that he wonders if he should have just waited for sunset. Suddenly, he spots a bird carrying a supply chest. Pay attention here, because this drop is a total game changer. Seowoon doesn't hesitate for a second as he chases it down. He gets there first, but before opening it, the system warns him. If he opens this, a bright red light will reveal his exact location every 30 minutes for the next 6 hours. Even with that massive risk, he opens the drop, hoping the loot inside is actually worth being a marked man. Before he can even check the items, the red light beams down on him, announcing his position to everyone. He immediately feels a rush of urgency. He needs to grab the loot and vanish before the predators arrive. However, the very first item he pulls out completely blows his mind because it is the Cloak of Hiding. He also finds a red cloud pill, a spiritual elixir that boosts inner energy. But it leaves the user totally paralyzed for 10 hours. On top of that, there is a 4th circle stone for mastering high-level magic, though it also leaves you immobile for 3 hours. Finally, there is the Windblade Grimoire, which allows the user to literally run like the wind. His speed will scale with his internal energy. After checking it all, he realizes the cloak is useless in daylight and he can't use the pills yet. However, you and I both know that if he can just survive for 6 hours, these rewards will be legendary. Seowoon decides to learn the Cloud Stride skill immediately so he can flee the area. Once he masters it, he starts tearing through the desert. But suddenly, he senses enemies closing in on him. They are still a good distance away, so he thinks he can outrun them. But he has to stay sharp, because he has no idea what secret techniques they are using. To throw them off the trail, Seowoon drops an empty chest and hides, hoping they fall for the bait. The two hunters find the chest, and before they can even realize it is a scam, they find those Tears of Lamia. It looks like this duo is a classic combo of a Roman warrior and a mage. The Roman guy assumes Seowoon just looted fast and bolted. They decide to push forward in the direction they think he went. That is exactly what Seowoon wanted. He is honestly glad they fell for such a simple trick so easily. Since he only has 30 minutes, Seowoon knows he needs to put as much distance between them as humanly possible. 30 minutes later, Seowoon is resting when he uses detection magic. He sees that the number of players hunting him has actually increased. Even though they aren't right on top of him, he knows they aren't very far away either. He wonders if the entire server just converged on the center. Suddenly, the red light flashes, and massive fireballs start raining down from the sky. Before the fireballs can flatten him, Seowoon dashes out of the way, just barely surviving. This is when he realizes that the other players are catching up at an absolutely terrifying speed. He wonders if they are using some high-level movement technique. Suddenly, the two enemies emerge from the flames, and Seowoon freaks out because they are on horseback. Seeing them closing the gap, Seowoon has no choice but to engage his shadow clone technique. But his shadows get absolutely trashed. This only makes the two hunters angrier, and they are now desperate to kill him. The Roman warrior hurls a spear, and Seowoon is in shock. You and I both know he is in deep trouble now. Let's jump into a wild fight, where a spear grazes Seowoon's face before he snatches it right off the ground. He channels his internal energy before launching the spear right back at his attackers with deadly force. The weapon pierces the warrior's armor and impales his arm, making him realize immediately that Seowoon is not a player to be messed with. He warns his partner that they would be at a major disadvantage if Seowoon actually had allies helping him. Arrows suddenly rain down from behind. Seowoon dodges the projectiles, but the horses end up getting killed in his place. Before he can even catch his breath, another volley of arrows whistles past his head, finishing off the animals. Seowoon looks back and sees a fresh team of archers joining the fray, leaving him trapped right in the middle. This is bad. Being caught in a pincer attack like this is the absolute worst scenario he could find himself in. Both teams keep their distance, watching each other to see who will make the first move on Seowoon. Noticing their hesitation, Seowoon taunts the archers, asking where all that earlier confidence went. He says it's obvious that out of the 3 teams present, at least 2 of them won't be making it out alive. He figures the archers want to recruit him so they can easily wipe out the warrior team together. Basically, if they kill Seowoon first, it turns into a risky 2 versus 2 fight with no guarantee of a win. They would much rather make it a 2 versus 1 so they can finish Seowoon off at the very end. Now watch this. Because Seowoon is about to set a trap and wait for someone to take the bait, the warrior starts bragging. But his mage partner tells him to shut up because provoking them won't do any good. Seowoon sees the guy as brave but incredibly stupid. The archers then declare that no one from the kingdom is leaving alive. Those archers are actually elves, and they promise to let Seowoon live if he decides to join up with their side. Realizing how deep the bad blood goes between them, Seowoon pulls out the precious 4th circle stone to grab their attention. He tells the mage he knows exactly how much this magic stone is actually worth. Then he tells the elves it's worth a fortune before dropping it on the ground with a wild proposal. He tells them flat out that whichever team wins the fight gets to keep the stone. He claims it's fairer than picking a side, then leaps away while the 2 teams start slaughtering each other. Secretly, he's using the stone as bait, since nobody has time to actually use it within 6 hours. To him, it is a small price to pay to distract 4 dangerous enemies at once. Besides, whoever survives will just track him down anyway, and he can just take the stone back then. As he sprints through the desert, he realizes his location will still show on the map for 5 more hours. He eventually reaches the center of the map, a deep canyon where he fears a boss monster might be hiding. Suddenly, that dreaded red light shines down on him once again. You and I knew they would return, and 30 minutes later, those guys he ditched earlier have finally caught up with him. The mage blasts him with a massive flame, but Seowoon counters by activating his phantom step skill. He summons a group of clones to buy time, but they all get incinerated by the heat. Seowoon gets caught in the blast and screams as the explosion levels everything in sight. Once the smoke clears, the warrior scolds the mage for knocking Seowoon into the canyon, losing the loot. The mage sheepishly admits that he might have gone a little bit too hard with that spell. He suggests they leave before that light pillar draws a crowd, especially since the warrior already has a rare item. The warrior holds the chainsword. It is a high-powered blade used like a whip, changing shape to dominate everyone in long-range combat. The mage hears this and feels jealous because he doesn't have any rare equipment for himself yet. He tells his partner to wait, while he uses levitation magic to check the bottom of the pit. The warrior isn't having it because they have no idea how much treasure that guy was actually carrying. He insists on going down together, even when the mage asks how he intends to reach the bottom. Trust me, you're going to want to see how they handle this rope descent as they head into the canyon. Alright, you and I are dropping straight into some chaos as this mage threatens to cut the rope if his warrior partner slips up. The warrior absolutely panics, begging the mage not to let go no matter how bad things get. But the mage just smirks, teasing him that they will just have to see about that. The warrior is stunned. He can't believe his own teammate is talking this kind of trash mid-descent. See, levitation magic is a massive gamble. Mages are totally defenseless while floating because they can't cast any other offensive spells. Only a handful of elite, high-level mages can actually multitask and cast magic while hanging in midair. They keep moving down until the mage mentions they're almost at the bottom, but the warrior just snaps back at him in frustration. He yells that it is easy for a floating mage to talk, but the mage coldly reminds him that he was the one who begged to join this mission. Suddenly, the tension snaps. The warrior feels the rope go slack and lets out a terrified scream. He desperately clings to the cliffside, cursing the mage for the prank, but when he looks up, his partner is already dead. The mage's upper body has been completely severed. He was useless to the killer, so he was finished off instantly. The warrior lets go and they both plunge downward. That's when he finally notices a massive lake sitting at the canyon floor. He's annoyed they were being so cautious when there was a perfect landing pad right beneath their feet. He dives in, resurfacing with a grin, but then a chilling realization suddenly hits him like a ton of bricks. Here's the part where you and I realize he forgot one major detail: who actually killed his partner. Before he can react, Seowoon is already closing in while the warrior is still half submerged and vulnerable in the lake. The warrior is absolutely floored. He can't believe Seowoon is actually standing right there, very much alive. Seowoon lunges forward with a bone-shattering punch, but the warrior refuses to just roll over and die. He fires off his heavy chains, hoping to snag Seowoon's head and rip it clean off. But Seowoon doesn't dodge. He catches the blade, letting the sharp chain wrap tightly around his own arm. The steel bites deep into his flesh, but he doesn't even flinch. He holds on with a death grip. Seowoon grabs the guy's head, whispering that he should have stayed home if he wasn't prepared to face a brutal death. With raw power, Seowoon jams the warrior's head underwater and unleashes a burst of energy that completely shatters his skull. The kill feed updates the moment Seowoon wipes that entire team off the map. He drags their heavy loot chests out of the water, immediately noticing just how much treasure they were carrying. He makes a mental note, right then fighting underwater is a massive pain he should probably avoid. Sifting through the gear, he finds a fire orb. It's a one-shot item that blasts a sealed fire spell wherever it's tossed. Then there is the Phoenix Strike, a powerful Circle 4 technique that packs a serious punch. This spell summons a firebird that grows as it flies. Seeing the high circle requirement, Seowoon realizes that mage was actually a big deal. Trust me, we both know Seowoon dodged a bullet by taking that mage out while he was still defenseless. He happily claims the chainsword for himself, even though his swordsmanship skills aren't quite there yet. Suddenly, his senses tingle. He feels players approaching and vanishes into thin air before they can even spot him. The new group finds nothing but empty loot crates, then Seowoon reappears right behind them. One fatal punch is all it takes. Thanks to his cloak of hiding, he's basically a ghost. He moves through the rest of the team and ends them. A few hours pass, and his current position finally lights up on the world map for everyone to see. Seowoon has been on a tear, dropping the player count to just 101. Then, those two elven archers reappear. But let's be real, they don't last a single minute before Seowoon wipes them out of the game entirely. With his 6-hour handicap finished, Seowoon pulls out the Circle 4 stone and the red cloud pill to find a safe spot. He finds a hidden location and prepares for a long haul, since absorbing both items will take at least 6 hours. He doesn't mind the wait though, he needs the rest anyway. He starts the process by consuming the powerful elixir first. 6 long hours later, both items are gone. Stepping out of the cave, he can feel his body already adapting to the power. To make things even better, it's nightfall. The darkness is about to become his greatest ally on the battlefield. His stats have definitely improved, but they still don't quite match the massive boost he got from absorbing that monster energy. He catches sight of some players nearby, and without a second thought, he starts moving in for the kill. He hunts them down relentlessly, because in his eyes, every other player is just fuel for his own rapid growth. Seowoon hunts through the night, and by morning, he sees the player count has dropped to just 42. By only the third day, the majority of the field has already been eliminated. Stick with me, because the system just announced that boss monster locations are now being revealed to every surviving player. Alright, you and I are diving back in where purple zones mean bosses and red zones mean buffs. Since the location of the buff monster is nearby, Seowoon decides he might as well go check it out. It is a risky move, but he is not the type to just walk past a powerful buff. Moments later, he reaches the spot and nearly loses it when he sees the buff monster is a terrifying, giant snake. Looking at its size, Seowoon realizes it would take at least 6 teams to even stand a chance. But before he can turn back, the monster snaps its eyes open and spots him. The snake lets out a violent hiss, leaving Seowoon too paralyzed with fear to even take a single step. He freezes as the massive beast coils dangerously close, but suddenly, the snake calms down and returns to its usual hibernating position. Seowoon wonders why it backed off, and assumes it must only attack when someone is within a very specific range. He knows he dodged a bullet, because if that snake had struck first, it would have been game over. Seowoon gladly retreats while lying to himself that he is not terrified. A few minutes later, he still hasn't run into another soul and finds it hard to believe players are already hiding after only 3 days. He suddenly senses a presence in the woods and instantly decimates the trees ahead with a sharp wind attack. Just then, he hears a child's voice from the distance, "Stick with me." This part is surprising. He finds a terrified kid hiding in the bushes and quickly apologizes. The boy looks like he has been through hell, with battered clothes and rough, bruised skin. While Seowoon is still asking the kid his age, the boy's partner leaps from the shadows, swinging a massive sword at his head. Seowoon dodges the blade effortlessly and counters with a palm strike that sends the attacker flying through the air. The man coughs up blood as he slams hard into a nearby tree trunk. Seowoon realizes the guy was using the kid as bait to lower people's guard before stabbing them in the back. Seowoon calls the guy the lowest scum he has ever met. The kid's body is a mess of wounds that were barely patched up by healing scrolls. The guy admits Seowoon is stronger, but he is convinced he will reach that same level once he takes Seowoon's life. He launches a high-powered flame orb that detonates the second it makes contact. A massive explosion swallows Seowoon whole, and before the guy even sees the outcome, he is already bragging about his gear. Suddenly, the smoke clears, and Seowoon's voice cuts through the air, mocking the man for relying on items to win. It turns out his magic resistance is simply too high for that orb. The player is paralyzed with terror, unable to wrap his head around the fact that Seowoon just tanked a Circle 3 spell. Before the guy can keep yapping, Seowoon slams his head into a tree, determined to make him suffer for what he did to that poor kid. Seowoon drives his fingers into the man's skull, ready to crush it against the bark. Seeing the violence, the kid panics and grips his own head, terrified that he is the next one on the chopping block. But Seowoon calms down and gently asks for his name. The boy is Lyle, and Seowoon is disgusted that someone so young is trapped here. He asks if this is Lyle's first time in the game, and the boy nods. He explains he was just walking home when he was suddenly dragged into this nightmare. Seowoon refuses to leave the kid in this state and decides to lend a hand. He pulls some jerky from his storage and hands over a powerful Circle 4 mana stone. He tells the boy that since he is already a Circle 4 mage, he has no use for it. He tells the boy it should be enough to keep him safe, since most of the heavy hitters are already gone. As he walks away, Seowoon tells Lyle that survival is the key, because it always leads to a new opportunity. Tears stream down Lyle's face as he bows deeply, thanking the stranger for saving his life. Let's pause, because Seowoon knows he was just like Lyle before meeting his mentor, Dutch, 2 months ago. Seowoon knows he would have been out early if not for that old man. Suddenly, a notification pops up saying the duo of Hayami Ren and Drift have abandoned the boss. He recognizes the name Ren immediately. It is the high schooler he saw back in the lobby. Knowing they just finished a brutal fight, Seowoon figures they must be drained and ready for an ambush. He decides an ambush is the best way to finish them before they recover. He follows the map to the boss's lair, only to find the monster already defeated. However, Ren and his partner are not the only ones left standing at the scene. A group of players are gathered around, arguing over some broken agreement regarding the boss area. One warrior yells that the deal was made before the fight, but Drift went ahead and stole the final kill anyway. Drift is done talking and challenges them all at once. Trust me, you and I want to see this. Alright, you and I are dropping right into a mess where loyalty means absolutely nothing to these people. A woman in tribal gear steps forward, telling Ren to stop mocking the warriors who stood by his side. For her, the only thing that actually matters is the fat loot they get from the boss monster. She wants her cut, but Ren shuts her down fast, arguing there is barely enough reward for himself to even go around. Since he won't share, she declares total war, swearing to kill every last one of them for the prize. Seowoon watches the whole circus from his hiding spot, wishing he had some popcorn for this top-tier entertainment unfolding before him. Suddenly, Ren starts screaming like a lunatic, demanding that someone hidden nearby finally show their face. Seowoon is confused until the dude actually calls him out by name, swearing that he can hear him lurking somewhere nearby. Ren claims hiding is useless now, and Seowoon can't get over how truly disgusting this guy is. Ren reaches for his inventory, reminding Seowoon of their supposed deal involving the monster's heart. He threatens to hand the heart over to the enemy if Seowoon doesn't appear right this second. Seowoon doesn't budge at all. He knows Ren is only using his name as a massive bluff to scare off the other players. Then, Ren pulls out a glowing pouch, claiming it contains the legendary heart of the ant. Now pay attention, because Ren is milking Seowoon's reputation from the kill feed to play every single person like a fiddle. Ren drops the bag, telling Seowoon he's free to slaughter these players however he likes. The other players are stunned. Who just leaves loot that valuable lying in the dirt? The tribal lady tells her crew to stay calm. They just need to split the rewards fairly. Before they can react, Ren and Drift bolt, leaving the players to scramble for the bag. A massive argument breaks out, but the lady isn't distracted. She charges straight after Ren. With the group in total chaos, Seowoon decides it's time to have a little fun of his own. Deep in the woods, Drift asks how much longer they have to run, because high-speed cardio definitely isn't his strong suit. His body is itching for a real fight, and Ren agrees. It's time to get serious. The lady and her squad are closing in fast. Ren tells Drift to wait for his signal. Once he's ready, they'll launch their planned counterattack. Drift grins. He's been waiting for this. Moments later, Ren springs up to a high tree branch and suddenly comes to a halt. He tells Drift to handle that annoying woman while he wipes out the rest of the trash. Ren lets loose, blasting the crew with a massive surge of lightning magic. Lightning fries the crew and their screams echo everywhere. The lady is stunned by Ren's power, but Drift is already there, swinging his weapon at her. Luckily, she manages to block the strike with ice. She leaps away, and Drift realizes his hammer is getting stuck in her freezing frost. Drift curses her annoying tricks. He breaks free and lunges, but her advanced ice magic shatters his fingers in an instant, leaving him helpless. Seeing Drift about to get finished off, Ren fires another bolt of lightning at her. But watch this. She redirects the electricity straight into the ground. That power is insane. The lady starts bragging. She explains that by coating herself in inner energy and controlling her chi, she can ground any attack. Advanced control is nothing to her. Meanwhile, while they keep yapping, Drift is on the ground, groaning in pure, agonizing pain. She promises Ren that his life is over because she's already seen through every single skill he has. She lunges at Ren, and he counters with more lightning magic. She confidently redirects it into a nearby tree. Ren panics. He's never seen anyone nullify his magic with that kind of ease. With her closing the distance, Ren realizes this fight is going to be settled with cold steel. He reaches into his storage, pulls out a blade, and takes a massive swing at her. She blocks it, but she's totally blindsided. A mage who's also a master of martial arts? Ren shoves her back just as a notification pops up. Her ally was just killed by Seowoon. That split-second distraction is all Ren needs to plunge his sword right into her. She falls back in pain, and Ren tells her it's over. Trust me, you and I are about to witness a crazy cliffhanger. Alright, you and I are starting this mid-chaos as an arrow tears through her skull, dropping her instantly. The force is absolutely insane. The projectile punches right through Drift's armor, leaving Ren and his partner completely paralyzed. Seowoon finally steps out from the shadows, telling Ren he has some serious nerve using his name like that. Ren loses his mind, realizing he's facing the legendary Seowoon, who asks if he really thought there wouldn't be consequences. Seowoon locks his aim right on Ren, demanding he hand over that ant's heart right now. Ren tries to play it off, claiming he already dumped the heart as a decoy earlier. But before the lie even leaves his mouth, Seowoon fires an arrow that grazes the side of his face. Seowoon tells him not even to try it. He saw right through that trick with the enchanted empty bag. He doesn't even have time to argue anymore, flat out stating he'll just kill them both to check for the heart. Thinking he's hot stuff, Drift lunges at Seowoon, shouting for him not to underestimate a true warrior of Thistle. He mocks Seowoon for being a mere archer, claiming a bow user is nothing compared to a fighter like him. Now watch this. Seowoon dodges with zero effort before a clean counterattack rips the guy's head clean off. Seowoon can't believe how pathetic the guy was, especially after all that big talk about being a warrior. Ren is shaking as he asks about Seowoon's experience, only for the archer to reveal that this is just his second game. The second Ren hears those words, he assumes Seowoon is just a lucky noob and screams at him to stop acting so cocky after only 2 rounds. He fires off a massive lightning strike, but Seowoon's arrow finds its mark before the attack even gets close to landing. Just like that, Seowoon wipes them both out, actually absorbing way more energy from Ren's remains than he did from Drift's. He figured Ren was just a mage, but it turns out the guy actually had some solid martial arts training too. Searching through the loot, Seowoon thinks seeing someone from his old world is unlikely, until he spots a spectacular golden weapon box in Ren's chest. This is a super rare item from specific monsters that gives you a random, high-tier special weapon when opened. Seowoon is totally stunned by the find. This drop is easily 1 in 1,000. He cracks it open immediately, his hopes hitting the ceiling as the box begins to glow with an intense, golden light. You and I knew it. His heart sinks as he pulls a weird dud called Selfish Hammett. He was praying for a legendary sword or maybe a golden bow, but instead, he got stuck with this absolute junk. Seowoon figures his luck just ran out, but as he's about to stash it away, the item suddenly starts talking. The ball transforms right before his eyes, revealing its true form as the legendary weapon spirit, Elsius Hammett. Seowoon isn't even impressed, asking Hammett if he's actually going to do any of the fighting for him. Hammett corrects him immediately, explaining that he's a sentient weapon that can shift into any form Seowoon can imagine. Internally, Hammett is baffled that Seowoon isn't celebrating, since most people would be crying tears of joy to own him. He asks what kind of weapon Seowoon prefers, promising to become the ultimate version that surpasses everything else. Seowoon just shrugs and says he doesn't really use weapons, making Hammett realize his new master is a brawler. Thinking fast, Hammett turns into a massive gauntlet, wrapping around Seowoon's fist and promising he can shatter anything in his path. But Seowoon hates it. It's way too heavy, and would just mess up his aim whenever he uses his bow. Hammett pivots quickly, shifting into a sleek, dark gauntlet that's built for speed and flexibility instead of raw power. Even then, Seowoon isn't satisfied, and Hammett finally snaps, screaming at his new master for being so incredibly picky with his forms. Seowoon suggests just tossing him in the subspace, but Hammett refuses to be ignored and begs him to pick a form. Seowoon stops and thinks for a second, deciding he wants something durable, like a piece of cloth he can use however he wants, which absolutely insults Hammett. Seowoon just tells him to get back in the subspace if he's going to have an attitude about it. Left with no choice, Hammett transforms into a simple sleeve. Seowoon is thrilled, even if Hammett feels like he's been demoted. He wraps the sleeve over his arm, telling Hammett to be a good boy so they can actually get along. And that's where we leave it. Hammett has no choice but to stay a sleeve for now. Alright, you and I are about to see that this hidden power has some even crazier layers to it. A massive roulette wheel appears before Seowoon. Hammett explains he can spin it once daily to cast a single spell, no matter what its power circle happens to be. Hammett says some of these spells can flip any battle, especially the one that literally lets you cheat death. Seowoon is absolutely stunned. A resurrection spell? That is basically like having a literal extra life in a high-stakes death game. But there is a catch. He has to land on it first. Seowoon asks for a spin immediately, and Hammett agrees. Suddenly, Hammett freezes. He senses a dark presence nearby. Someone is locked onto Seowoon with pure, unfiltered killing intent. He wonders if any survivors managed to hunt him down. Seowoon cannot feel any chi, and desperately asks for a direction. Hammett cannot pinpoint the exact location just yet, but he promises his instincts are never wrong. Seowoon pulls out that airboard he looted from the mage he crushed earlier. This board is prime transport for high-level mages and witches. Hammett snaps this is not the time for casual chatting. Siwoon decides the best move is to lower his guard and bait his stalker into the open. Hammett actually likes the idea, but warns him that the risk is far too high. Siwoon is totally shocked. How can Hammett read his thoughts like an open book? Watch this. Their minds are linked through a shared consciousness. But before they can even process that fact, a sudden barrage of arrows and fireballs slams directly into Siwoon. He lets out a scream, crashing hard into the dirt. The archer finally steps out of hiding, while his mage partner appears from the other side. She immediately points out something terrifying. The kill feed is not showing a notification. The mage screams that Siwoon is definitely still alive, and tells her partner to finish him off immediately. The archer tells the mage to activate magic detection, just in case any allies are lurking nearby. The archer moves in even closer, planning to put a final arrow through Siwoon's skull. But then, Siwoon suddenly raises his head and catches the arrow with his bare hands. The archer panics as Siwoon snaps the arrow like a twig right in front of him. Siwoon actually has to give it to Hammett. He is definitely durable enough to survive that. The archer leaps backward in a panic, screaming for his partner to use all of her magic power. Siwoon lunges toward him, pulling a chainsword out of his inventory space. Before the archer can even blink, the blade is already sliced clean through his neck. As the life fades from his eyes, he can only wonder if Siwoon fired a hidden arrow. The mage sees her partner get slaughtered and immediately hops on her broom to get the hell out. Siwoon is actually left in awe. It's the very first time he's ever seen someone escape on a broom. Hammett explains that is standard witch behavior. Is he really just letting her go? Siwoon has zero interest in chasing her down because, honestly, she doesn't even look like a threat. After looting, Siwoon figures the game will wrap up in 2 days since so few players remain. I was wrong. It is day 20, and you and I can see the player count hasn't dropped by even one person. Bored out of his mind sitting in a tree, Siwoon finally grabs his airboard. Hammett asks him if he's going back on patrol again. Siwoon says he has no other choice. All the players are hiding, so he has to find them himself. He remembers hunting easily until day 5. But after that point, finding even one single player turned into a completely impossible mission for him. He has spent the last 10 days scouring every inch of the map searching for anyone still in hiding. Siwoon asks Hammett if he can sense anyone nearby, because hunting down every single player is getting exhausting. Hammett says he cannot feel a thing. The entire area is just as quiet as it was yesterday. Siwoon mocks him, saying he thought he got a top-tier radar. But it turns out Hammett is actually useless. Hammett tries to defend himself. He explains that unless the enemy is putting off bloodlust, he cannot sense them. Even though the map has shrunk to only 1/6 of its original size, there are still plenty of hiding spots. Hammett tells him to stop searching so desperately because the players will eventually show up, but Siwoon tells him to look at the facts. He points out that his name is already all over the kill feed. If the survivors team up for an 11 versus 1 showdown, he is definitely going to be finished. Siwoon knows he has to start thinning out the survivors right now to prevent a gang-up. Hammett suggests a much bolder plan. Instead of wasting time searching, he should go hunt the Black Argon. The Black Argon. Hammett explains it is a massive buff monster lurking in the area, and Siwoon immediately loses his mind when he hears what he is suggesting. No way he solos that snake. You and I need to see what's next. Trust me, you and I are about to see Siwoon take a huge gamble here as he faces the snake. Siwoon has to ask Hammett one more time if he really thinks they can win, and Hammett promises they can. Minutes later, the other players are seen struggling against the massive snake, and it looks like they have almost won. Suddenly, the team detects Siwoon's presence and starts to panic, desperately trying to kill the snake before he catches them. Hammett warns Siwoon that the players' mana sensors have already flagged him, but Siwoon is already one step ahead. Siwoon leaps toward them, knowing full well they are shaking in their boots now that he is on the scene. Once he lands, Siwoon realizes every single remaining player in the game is right there in front of him. Siwoon wonders why he is always the target for these ganks before pulling his bow out of his inventory. As one player tries to finish the snake, Siwoon blasts a lightning arrow into his back, stunning him and leaving him open. The group loses their minds because they know exactly who is raining down arrows on them. But even so, they still cannot figure out where the arrows are coming from yet. Someone shouts that they need to drop the hunt immediately, because if they stay focused on the snake, they will all be wiped out. Suddenly, Siwoon sees a countershot flying his way and has to relocate fast. The leader orders their mages to cast detection spells and focus everything on killing Siwoon right now. Siwoon realizes there is a smart tactician in their group, so he decides he has to end this fast. He pulls his bow back with every ounce of his strength while channeling all of his energy into it. Watch this closely, because this shot is about to change the entire game. He fires a headshot, and the snake screams as lightning drains its health. The players watch in total shock as the boss falls, frantically asking which of their teams secured the kill. Then the notification hits. Siwoon actually stole the kill, and now his stats are jumping by 30% for the next 10 days. Instead of running, the players decide to swarm Siwoon together, figuring they can still take him despite that 30% buff. Seowoon drops down from the high treetops to take the entire group head-on. Chaos erupts as they clash, but when his first strike is blocked, Seowoon realizes their mage's barrier has to go. He slams a fist into one of the mages, dropping him instantly, and just like that, Seowoon secures his first kill of the night. As the team swarms him, he ditches his useless cloak for more mobility. He notices the group is being cautious, waiting to see his full power before they commit to another attack. Seowoon decides that the mage with the broken barrier is going to be his next victim, so he leaps through the air toward him. The moment a warrior sees him coming, he screams at the rest of his team. He yells to protect the mage at all costs, but the others shout back that they are only working together to kill Seowoon. Seowoon is genuinely shocked to see this group actually working as a team, which is completely unlike them. You and I both know Seowoon was not expecting this. Before he can reach the mage, they form a human wall. But a simple wall is not enough, and he shatters their defense with power. He smashes a warrior's shield, but before he can even breathe, another fighter swings a blade at his back. Seowoon barely dodges as the flexible sword stretches out like a whip, nearly catching him off guard. Seowoon decides a counterstrike is his best bet and manages to push the man back, but he is still surprised by their amazing teamwork. Very soon, Seowoon finds himself pinned right between two of their deadliest frontline warriors. Realizing he is about to get sliced, Seowoon commands Hammett to shift into the exact form he is imagining. Hammett transforms into a shield and blocks the worst of it, but Seowoon still takes a nasty cut to his face. That opening is all he needs to punch the heavy hitter square in the face, killing him instantly. After that, Seowoon realizes there are only 8 people left to deal with. But one of the mages suddenly tells Seowoon that they were prepared for his arrival, and they have actually created a counter just for him. The blonde mage leading the group smirks, telling Seowoon she has been waiting for this exact moment. She blasts him with a spell, and the second it connects, Seowoon realizes he is in serious trouble. It is a massive debuff that cuts all of his stats by 40% for the next 30 minutes. You and I both knew he should have taken her out first. Now, the players swarm him, ready to crush their weakened enemy. Alright, you and I are about to watch Seowoon fight his way out of this deadly trap. Seowoon fights back hard, slamming a powerful kick directly into the first guy's chest. The man blocks the strike, but the impact confirms that the mage's debuff spell is actually working. This gives the group a second wind, and Seowoon tries to leap away to find an opening. Suddenly, a massive flame attack strikes him mid-air, knocking him violently to the ground. Seowoon realizes his 30% buff is the only thing barely offsetting that 40% debuff. Without that snake monster's power-up, that fire blast would have ended his life right then and there. He knows there is only one way out: kill the witch and break the curse for good. They're impressed he survived the blast, but they aren't stopping, switching over to brutal close-range combat instead. Seowoon regrets playing fair. He really should have taken out their leader with a lethal surprise attack. In the middle of the chaos, he notices Lyle just standing there, frozen and doing absolutely nothing. Then, another mage lets loose a powerful spell, throwing Seowoon flat onto his back. He's being choked out to stop his movement, when a sudden stone spike slaps him into the earth. The warriors descend to finish him. Now here's where you and I see if he has tricks left. Right then, Lyle finally moves, taking out the debuff mage with a sharp, lethal wind strike. The curse vanishes instantly, and Seowoon finds the strength to dodge the killing blows at the last second. He lunges forward and punches the leader, blowing a massive hole right through the man's chest. The leader dies in shock, while Seowoon sits up, realizing Lyle was the one who saved him. Coughing up blood and knowing his end is near, Lyle tells Seowoon he has to win this. A player stabs Lyle in the back, and watching the boy die sends Seowoon into a mindless rage. He'd only given the kid a few items, never expecting to actually care about what happened to him. Seowoon tears through the remaining players, blinded by fury that they would execute a child without hesitation. Questions and anger flood his mind until everyone on the field is nothing but a cold corpse. He only snaps back to reality when the system congratulates him for winning the entire game. You and I probably didn't see that coming. Seowoon actually emerged as the sole survivor. He realizes there is a massive amount of chi to absorb and loot to grab, but the system stops him simply because the game has ended. He's earned 240 coins, and took home the title for the most kills in the session. On top of a 100 coin bonus, his top 5 streak earns him an extra 15 coins too. 355 coins in one run? That's way better than the 140 he got last time. Hammett starts bragging immediately, taking all the credit for Seowoon's massive victory in the arena. Seowoon admits he was somewhat useful, but tells him he was still kind of mid overall. It turns out Hammett costs 100 coins to buy, and he's begging Seowoon to pick him up. Seowoon isn't sold, telling the loud spirit he has zero interest in paying that much for him. Hammett claims that buying a magnificent being like him for 100 coins is a steal, but Seowoon says a 70-coin cloak of hiding is way more useful. In fact, he's looking at the golden weapon box as a much better use of his funds. That's when the system reminds him that his top 5 finish grants him a spin on the roulette. Since he's the actual winner, he gets to spin the wheel 3 separate times for rare rewards. Seowoon prays for a high-tier pull, while Hammett just hopes he finally gets picked by his master. The first spin lands on Escrow's necklace again, but he's not too upset since it's still worth something. On the second spin, Hammett is the happiest guy alive when Seowoon actually pulls him from the wheel. The spirit celebrates like a total lunatic, relieved he doesn't have to go back in that tiny box. Seowoon isn't thrilled because he really wanted that weapon box, but he admits that saving 100 coins on the spirit isn't a bad deal. The final spin gives him a fragmented secret tome, which has a shop value of 60 coins. It's surprisingly expensive, leaving him wondering how many more pieces he'll need to complete the set. He settles on buying a 4-circle stone stick with me for what comes next. Alright, you and I are watching a legend in the making. He grabs an Iceland spellbook, a vital essence pill, Tokar's ring, and the cloak of hiding, still leaving 49 coins for later. Once his shopping spree is over, the system sends its luck as he's warped back to reality. Seowoon drops right back into the park, but his heart sinks. 2 hikers are staring right at him. They're instantly repulsed by the sight of him being absolutely covered in blood. To stop them from panicking, Seowoon lies and says it is just movie makeup from a nearby film set. Man, Seowoon really doesn't want to deal with this every single time he returns. It's going to get old fast. Seowoon heads home, and even though it was only his second game, the power surge in his body is undeniable. He peels off his blood-soaked jersey and tosses it in the trash, low-key mourning his favorite shirt. He immediately drops into a lotus position, pulling out the 4-circle stone. 6 hours pass as he burns through both the stone and his red cloud pill. Pay attention here, just like last time, his room starts baking like a literal sauna. Seowoon stands up, feeling completely recharged. He can sense his mana and stats have spiked, but he needs to see the numbers before grabbing some food. He pulls up his status window and is blown away by the massive jump in his inner energy and mana. The growth from just 2 games is insane, and he's already hyped to see how much stronger he will get in the future. He's just about to head out for food when Hammett starts screaming, asking how long he plans on being ignored. Seowoon pulls him out of the storage space, telling the loudmouth weapon to keep it down. Hammett demands to know why he was stashed away like trash, but Seowoon just tells him that despite his great skills, he's way too noisy. Hammett argues that he isn't noisy at all and that legendary weapons like him are a rare find. Seowoon ignores the chatter and uses the voice assistant on his phone to find the nearest Chinese restaurant. Hammett is stunned when he hears the phone actually talk back to him, so Seowoon explains that in his world, there's no shortage of talking tools just like him. Seowoon totally crushes the weapon's ego, making it clear he is really not that special in this world. Hammett argues that it isn't just the talking, his true value lies in being an elite, one-of-a-kind weapon. Seowoon casually mentions he can't even have Hammett turn into a sword, because in this world, you need a permit for that. Now Seowoon is stuck wondering what he's supposed to do with him. Hammett reminds him that he can just turn into a cloth sleeve for his hand, just like back in the game. But Seowoon shuts that down, knowing people would think he's a total weirdo walking around with a bandage on his hand. Hammett tries transforming into a robe next, but Seowoon just tells him that's even worse than the sleeve. Seowoon is about to toss him back into subspace when he quickly shifts into a necklace. Seowoon admits the necklace works, and Hammett finally lets out a huge sigh of relief. Plus, the necklace has a built-in killing intent detector. Just then, his food arrives, and moments later, he's finished his entire meal. You and I both know that feeling Seowoon is just happy to have real food after eating bland dried meat for so long. Hammett asks if the food was any good, but Seowoon points out that since he can't eat, there's no point in asking. Hammett says he's just curious about his heartless master. Seowoon then stands up, announcing that it's time to head out. Hammett asks where they're going, but Seowoon reminds him that since he's coming along, he doesn't need an answer. Seowoon then heads over to the internet cafe where he used to spend all his time gaming. The attendant is shocked to see him after so long and asks if he's been away on some big adventure. Seowoon just claims he's been busy prepping for school and only stopped by to take a quick break. The attendant mentions they're holding a Loyal Ground tournament next week and asks if he's interested in joining the competition. Seowoon tells him he's found a much better game and has quit Loyal Ground for good. He then sits down at a computer. Hammett asks what this Loyal Ground game is, and Seowoon just calls it a low-budget version of Cloud Survival. Seowoon knows that there's no way a regular game can satisfy him after experiencing the reality of Cloud Survival. He's actually here to see if he can track down Ren, that mysterious high schooler he met while they were both stuck in the game. He's certain other players exist in the real world, and some of them are bound to be massive attention seekers. From what he's gathered, these players are all communicating through the dark web, and that is exactly where he is heading. He finds the survivors board, and trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. Alright. You and I are about to watch him click an icon that asks one heavy question. Is he a survivor? Sweat dripping down his face, he hits yes while wondering exactly what kind of trouble he just invited in. Seowoon is shocked. The site looks exactly like the game UI, which means whoever built this is a hardcore Cloyd veteran. Suddenly, a chat box pops up with a cold warning, "Get lost if he's just here to mess around." He realizes it's just a bot designed to filter out the fakes and the trolls. Assuming it needs a code or a specific pattern, Seowoon straight up asks the bot for the password. The bot tells him to scram again, but this time, it drops a chilling detail: it already knows his location. It warns Seowoon he shouldn't even be here if he can't even protect his own data on the dark web. Seowoon is stunned by these high-level hackers, but the bot just tells him to shut his computer down. He refuses to leave, making the chatbot ask if he's scared. He just says he's way too impatient to wait for access right now. The bot finally gives in, demanding he prove he's a true survivor. Now watch this. Just as Seowoon wonders how to prove it, a strange image flickers onto his screen. It's a scattered puzzle, and he immediately recognizes it as the statue from deep inside the game's world. Seowoon can't believe it's this simple. He's actually annoyed they didn't just keep things straightforward from the very beginning. Once the puzzle is solved, the site confirms his authentication is a success and officially welcomes him into the fold. The chat asks how many runs he's completed, but Seowoon keeps it vague, saying that's a bit too personal. The bot agrees and tells him to log in using a specific ID they just sent over. With elite hackers promising to protect him 24/7, Seowoon snaps a photo of his credentials for later use. Logged in at last, Seowoon starts browsing for where to begin. He decides to check the beginner's tips section before anything else. The first tip? He learns that governments everywhere are desperately trying to control ability users, so he must never reveal his powers in the public eye. The second tip warns him that the number of players is exploding across the world every single day. He shouldn't feel too special, because government-backed private groups are already out there actively hunting down fresh beginners like him. They are willing to use any means necessary to stop the chaos these ability users might cause. I know what you're thinking. Seowoon sees this as a direct threat and starts to seriously freak out. Next, the guide explains how he can sell items he scavenged from the game. There are broker sites and wealthy global buyers on the dark web ready to pay cash. He can visit these sites to turn his rare items into real money. Seowoon realizes that if he plays his cards right, he could be earning a stable income very soon. He heads over to the market section to see exactly what his current inventory is actually worth. Scrolling through the forums, he's shocked to see tons of powerful items he didn't even know existed yet. One item, a witch's elixir, is listed for 20 million won, and the buyer has a very strict deadline. Seowoon thinks he's seen the peak until he finds an item with a bid of 100 million won. It's a failed hair growth ointment exclusive to the Court Empire. He makes a mental note of it just in case. Browsing further, he finally starts to understand why everyone here is so obsessed with their run counts. Bodyguard requests are all over the forum. Players with 10 runs earn millions monthly, while those with over 30 can basically name their own price. In this world, a higher run count equals higher status. Suddenly, he spots a trending article about a 13th run hybrid mage who got crushed by a measly second run player. He checks the author's name and sees it was written by someone calling themselves the high school mage. The readers are in total denial, talking trash and refusing to believe a rookie could be that strong. Seowoon decides to message the author since he seems active on the forum. The guy responds immediately, asking if it's really true that he's only on his second run. Seowoon just says yes. Seowoon is confused and has to ask, is being on the second run really that big of a deal? Ren replies that it's massive. It's definitely not normal for a player to be this overpowered after only 2 runs. Alright, you and I are starting, as Ren admits he thought Seowoon was a fixed player, leaving Seowoon totally confused. The moment Seowoon asks for a definition, Ren confirms that he's really dealing with a total noob. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this. He explains that everyone starts free, but meeting certain conditions turns you into a fixed player. Look, you and I both know most free players miss the secret tutorial, but it took Ren 13 whole runs to even realize it existed. Ren asks for his number, promising Seowoon he can show him the ropes since the guy is still just a total beginner. Seowoon flinches, honestly wondering if this guy is trying to track him down just to settle their in-game score in real life. Seowoon straight up admits he has zero trust for the guy, but Ren swears he won't regret it because he's about to rank up as a fixed player very soon, which means he is going to need a fixed team regardless. Seowoon is still lost on what a fixed team even is, so Ren suggests they just meet up in person instead. They pick a spot, and Ren promises to be there in 1 hour, leaving Seowoon wondering if this meeting is actually a massive mistake. 1 hour later, Seowoon pulls up to the spot, and just a few moments after that, some guy on a motorcycle roars in. The bike is so loud that everyone nearby thinks he is just some desperate show-off. With his helmet on, nobody can tell who he is, though Seowoon is low-key impressed by his guts to ride into such a crowded street. He assumes it is just some rich brat. But then the rider suddenly turns his head to look directly at him. Seowoon freezes in shock, worried that he might have been staring at the biker just a little bit too much. Then, the rider pulls off his helmet to reveal it is actually Ren, and he tells Seowoon that he is indeed the high school mage he came here to see. Seowoon is totally stunned because, let's be real, it is his first time meeting someone he actually killed in the game. Stick with me here, because even in person, this guy has a seriously punchable face. They head into a cafe where Seowoon asks why they had to meet physically. Ren gets right down to business, telling Seowoon that he wants to officially join his team. Seowoon reminds him he already mentioned that in the chat, but he still does not understand what that even entails. Ren keeps blabbing about them both being free players until Seowoon tells him to lower his voice before somebody overhears their secret. But Ren says it is totally fine because of the special enchanted pendant he is wearing around his neck. It turns out nobody else can hear their conversation. Seowoon is shocked and asks if Ren actually brought an item from the game world. Ren reveals it was actually crafted right here in the real world by a player who specialized as an expert alchemist. I know what you're thinking. It is becoming painfully obvious to Ren that Seowoon is a complete and total rookie at this. Ren asks about his track record, and Seowoon casually mentions he took second place on his first run and first on the second. Ren is absolutely floored, saying he has only ever seen stats like that on the forums, but Seowoon just claims he got lucky. Ren admits he has only hit the top 5 once and has been on the verge of retiring multiple times already. Seowoon asks what retiring even means, and Ren explains that in this world, it is basically a permanent elimination. If a player fails to make the grade, they are locked out and can never log into the game again. Ren suggests they move past that for now, since his main goal is for the two of them to form a team. Seowoon asks if you have to be a fixed player to team up, and Ren explains they can form a permanent party of up to 8 people. Apparently, the group will be able to join the same matches together, no matter where each person lives in the real world. Seowoon asks if he really just wants to play the game together, and Ren confirms it. After a long talk, the two finally decide to call it a night. On the way home, Hammett reminds Seowoon that Ren was just his enemy a few moments ago, which makes this sudden team-up feel pretty weird. Seowoon just says it is a game, and he does not hold petty grudges. Plus, he figures it is always better to have teammates who are actually willing to follow his orders. Hammett keeps arguing why this might be a bad move, but Seowoon insists that everything in this life is a risk. Suddenly, Hammett senses a sharp killing intent aimed right at Seowoon, warning him that there are 3 attackers nearby. He asks if he should transform into a weapon to end this quickly, but Seowoon refuses because these 3 are such absolute trash they cannot even hide their own murderous presence properly. Seowoon is easily able to pinpoint exactly where each of the 3 attackers is hiding. Now watch this. Once he tracks their positions, Seowoon confidently tells them all to crawl out of their hiding spots. Since they are exposed, the trio walks out acting tough, telling Seowoon to stop talking big before he sees what they can do. Seowoon just looks at them calmly and asks the group to state their business. The bald guy can't believe how arrogant Seowoon is being and warns him to cooperate if he doesn't want to get seriously hurt. From the way they act, Seowoon immediately realizes these are those beginner hunters from the forums who love preying on innocent rookies. Hammett asks one more time if he should transform into a weapon and handle things, but Seowoon says there is no need, because it is not even worth the effort. He just stands firm, unleashing an aura that strikes pure terror into their hearts. Alright, you and I are watching Seowoon give these thugs one last chance to walk away before things get ugly. Their leader tries to play mind games, telling Seowoon he's already been flagged as a terrorist by the government to make him hesitate. While swearing up and down they represent the state, he demands cooperation, threatening to brand Seowoon an official terrorist. He even claims that just flashing those powers in a neighborhood is enough to get him locked up. Seowoon keeps it cool, promising that if they just back off, he won't cause any trouble. But if they really want his help, they better bring a legal warrant, because he's not dumb enough to follow people without real authority. But one hothead decides to ignore the warning and lunges at Seowoon's back. And Seowoon's instincts kick in instantly. He whips around and throws a devastating punch, but stops it at the very last millisecond, just to show that he could have easily crushed him if he wanted. Seowoon calmly reminds the group that they were the ones who pulled weapons first. The leader realizes they've just walked right into a trap, and starts screaming at his teammate for being such a reckless idiot. Seowoon finds it insulting that they actually think they can restrain him. He mocks them, asking if he really looks like some pathetic beginner to them. Now check this out. Suddenly, a dozen clones of Seowoon surround them, and the trio finally realizes they're in way over their heads. Their intel said Seowoon was just a solo player, with zero mention of him having any powerful allies or backup like this. Seowoon gives them one final order: never cross his path again. He promises that if they mind their own business, he'll do exactly the same. As he walks away, he tells them to actually measure their opponent's power level next time. One guy wants to track him, but the leader shuts him down. He's not stupid enough to keep poking a monster like Seowoon without a plan. He decides it's safer to just leave him alone for now. Meanwhile, Hamd asks Seowoon if it wouldn't be easier to just eliminate the group and avoid future headaches. But Seowoon has to remind him that back here, that's what people call a major crime. Once he's back home, Seowoon starts thinking it might be time to find a new place to stay. He's also completely baffled about how they managed to track him down. He has a gut feeling it's because he sold that valuable necklace at the pawn shop. He decides right then that if those guys ever come sniffing around again, he's going to show them exactly who they're dealing with. But after his secret meeting with Ren, okay, get this, Seowoon realizes that for a guy on his second run, he's basically a god. His coin count even puts veterans on their 30th run to shame. Seowoon swears to use every single coin to power up and keep his spot at the very top. He figures out that Cloyd's survival and reality aren't really that different anymore. Seowoon spends the entire night meditating and cultivating his energy, only stopping once he notices the sun starting to peek through the window. Even after all that work, his energy gain is tiny. It's clear that trying to train in the real world is just way too slow. He decides to try the method Ren suggested. Back at the cafe the night before, Ren had admitted that the two of them were still basically complete strangers. Ren suggested they should train together until the next game starts to build some actual trust between them. Seowoon asks for details, and Ren explains that it's obvious you can sharpen your in-game skills through enough practice in the real world. But obviously, they can't just train in public. That's why top-tier teams go as far as renting out private islands just for training sessions. Ren says they need to build their bond first, calling it a two birds with one stone move. Ren admits he got totally wrecked by Seowoon, but he promises he's still a top-tier player even if he's not quite on Seowoon's level yet. By the end, they swap contact info, and Seowoon never expected that he would actually be reaching out to Ren this soon. But he's out of options, since Ren is the only person he knows who actually understands how this crazy game works. Seowoon calls Ren up and breaks the news that those government lapdogs already found him last night. Ren is shocked that Seowoon is already being hunted on only his second run. Seowoon asks if that's not normal, and Ren tells him it's definitely not. He asks Seowoon if he's done anything weird lately. Seowoon mentions selling the necklace at a pawn shop, and Ren admits it's great for quick cash, even saying he brings one back every single run. Seowoon asks how he avoids getting caught, and Ren casually reveals his trick. He just melts the gold down before selling it. Seowoon is totally stunned, realizing that Ren has some seriously shady tricks up his sleeve for surviving in the real world. Ren promises he can help him disappear, and trust me, you and I both know that having a hacker like him around is a total lifesaver. Alright, you and I are diving into the backstory of a legendary hacker before he joined Cloyd's survival. Seowoon is reeling from the news. It just proves how infamous Ren really is in the underground world. They agree to start training tomorrow. The next day, Seowoon waits at the designated bus stop for his ride. Ren pulls up on his bike, telling Seowoon to hop on so they can grab supplies at the supermarket. Seowoon wonders where the training grounds are. Ren says it is going to take them about 1 hour. Where exactly? Turns out, Ren bought a private mountain in the suburbs and built his own personal training center. Seowoon is totally floored. He can't help but ask just how loaded this guy actually is. Ren just brushes it off, making Seowoon low-key annoyed by his casual attitude toward his massive wealth. He vows to bring back massive loot next time, because holding onto a high schooler's waist feels absolutely pathetic. An hour later, they reach the mountain. A massive security fence blocks the way in. Ren kills the engine. From this point on, they have to trek the rest of the way on foot. Buying a whole mountain and fencing it off? Seowoon realizes having this kind of money makes everything way too convenient. Ren corrects him. He is not just rich, he is a player who focuses strictly on turning a profit. Now pay attention, every cent he owns came from salvaged game loot, not his parents. As they sprint, Seowoon can't believe it. Ren admits it is a long story. He already knew about Cloyd's survival before the invite, thanks to his extensive deep web hacking activities. He only brings back items with real-world value. Since he survived 13 games, Seowoon asks about his total earnings. Ren lists it off 2 houses, the mountain, some other land, and a bit of stock for good measure. On top of that, he is sitting on 80 million yen in cold, hard cash. I know what you're thinking, that's an insane fortune. Seowoon actually loses his balance and falls face first while processing the news. Inside the gym, Seowoon spots a glowing crystal. He asks if this is another item brought from the game. It's a barrier stone. Once activated, the entire area becomes completely invisible to anyone on the outside world. Seowoon asks why he doesn't use it in-game. Ren explains there is a specific catch. A real-world alchemist made it using game materials. That means it cannot be taken back inside the game. Seowoon is shocked. He didn't realize there was no way to bring real-world items into the game world. Ren explains that only an advanced subspace ring can drop items into fixed-player games, which is the only way. So, that is a perk for fixed players. Seowoon wants food, but Ren demands a sparring match first. Ren grabs his staff. Ever since his loss in the game, he has been training like a madman. Before the real training starts, he wants to confirm each other's strength during a quick duel. Seowoon is surprised he's serious. Ren lets him know that holding back is definitely going to hurt him. Hamid asks if he should transform into a weapon, but Seowoon tells him to just watch for now. Ren strikes first with a bolt of lightning. Seowoon barely leaps into the air to dodge the attack. He lunges at Ren to end it instantly, but a powerful barrier blocks his incoming strike from above. The attack stops dead. Seowoon admits this is the toughest shield he has ever encountered. Ren smiles, explaining that barrier strength scales with magic power, so it won't break easily. Seowoon leaps back, noticing his growth. He used to believe that mages who just spammed basic spells were complete trash, but after seeing this, it is time for him to actually start taking this fight seriously. Seowoon summons shadow clones that dash forward. Ren instantly fries every single one with powerful lightning. Using the distraction, Seowoon leaps in. He's not the only one who can use magic in this duel. He unleashes ice magic at Ren, who counters with a flame wall while mocking the trash magic. Seowoon teleports in with a flurry of punches, but Ren dodges every single one with pure elegance. Suddenly, Seowoon's legs are frozen. Ren laughs. It is an Earthbinder restraint spell, and there is no escape. Ren brags that he isn't like typical mages who only know a few basic spells. He conjures a massive lightning strike to finish Seowoon, but while celebrating his win, he feels a punch from behind. He turns to see Seowoon smiling. "You and I know things just got real." Freaking out, Ren asks how he got behind him. Seowoon just smirks, revealing that the guy Ren just killed was only a clone. "Alright, you and I are about to see just how scary Seowoon's become." Ren is stunned, realizing he didn't feel a thing from that distance. He asks Ren for feedback, and Ren admits it is so perfect that he'd be dead before even realizing they were in combat. Seowoon just shakes his head, telling Ren he still hasn't mastered his inner energy yet. When Ren asks if he was holding back, Seowoon simply gives him a blunt nod. Ren sighs in disappointment, realizing he can't win alone. But Seowoon surprises him, praising how much stronger his magic has actually become. He asks if he used a high circle stone, but Ren reveals it's all thanks to the staff he crafted from last game's materials. "This thing is broken. It boosts magic power by 90%. You and I both know that's insane 5 stored spells in one item." Seowoon can't believe something that overpowered can be crafted using game materials. Ren admits he can't bring it into the game just yet, but once he becomes a fixed player, game over. Even Seowoon is floored, admitting he's never seen an item like this in the entire game. Seowoon guesses it's worth 200 coins, but Ren explains that coin value doesn't always match an item's true power. Ren mentions that in the world of Cloyd, most items are dirt cheap, unless they're specific, rare drops everyone is hunting for. That's why he can make bank with just a few coins. Players who drop out often become alchemists just to focus on crafting. Ren says they find it even more fun because they're making money, which is basically the best of both worlds. Seowoon just shrugs it off, figuring everyone has their own weird tastes in things. He then tells Ren it's time to eat since they're done with their little training match. Ren asks how many coins he's earned, and Seowoon says it's somewhere under 500 coins total. Ren nearly passes out, realizing Seowoon is actually the rich one between the two of them. But Seowoon ruins the mood, saying he already traded most of it for elixirs and rare stat items. Ren screams, asking if he really dumped all that wealth into stat upgrades. 500 coins could have made them a literal fortune. Seowoon just dunks on him, saying Ren's level is low because he's always obsessed with money instead of getting stronger. Ren has to admit, the guy actually has a pretty good point there. Now, let's pivot to the shadows. A private organization has reported back to their boss, a terrifying giant named Tatsuya, about their latest target. Tatsuya decides Seowoon is definitely someone they need to keep a very close eye on. They still don't know his identity or where he's hiding, only the fact that he sold Escrow's necklace at a local pawn shop. Back at the mountain, Seowoon is grinding hard, pushing his shadow clone skills to the absolute limit. He pushes himself to the edge and realizes his limit is 7 clones. Trying to create any more than that is just impossible. While he's busy, Ren is having his own training session, firing off massive magic spells all over the mountainside. Seowoon is shocked to see Ren spamming high-level spells like they were just basic, low-level magic attacks. But even with that display, Ren thinks he can push his power even further. Seowoon tells him to chill so they can finally eat. A few minutes later, Seowoon has a pot of ramen ready. He can't believe he's been stuck on kitchen duty since the very first day they got here. He notices Ren's been on the phone for a while, assuming the guy is talking to some secret girlfriend. Ren clears the air immediately, revealing that he's actually just checking in on his little sister. Seowoon still trolls him, saying it must be nice being rich since his family is probably always happy. Ren just replies that they're close because she's the only family he has left in this world. The second Seowoon hears those words, he completely freezes up in total shock. Ren explains that it's just the two of them now because their parents passed away when he was in middle school. Overwhelmed with guilt, Seowoon asks why he didn't say anything sooner. Ren admits it's not a fun story, and he didn't mind the rich kid comments. Turns out, his parents died in a drunk driving accident about 4 years ago. When it happened, relatives who hadn't visited in years suddenly swarmed the funeral, acting like they were in charge. Ren later found out they split the condolence money among themselves. One day, you and I can probably guess what happened next, a heartbreaking mistake. Ren's sister asked for help, but he just screamed at her to handle it herself. Alright, you and I are diving back into Ren's tragic past, and man, it's a heavy one. To make things worse, school was a daily nightmare, where he was beaten constantly, and at home, he had to handle the massive pressure of supporting his family. Eventually, he just locked himself away, spending all his time disappearing into the dark corners of the deep web. It was during this period of isolation that he realized he had a serious talent for hacking. This was his first time hearing about survival, and at first, he couldn't even believe a game like that existed. But as he kept digging deeper, the whole mystery just completely absorbed him. He hoped an invite would change his life, but unfortunately, the call he was waiting for never actually arrived. Then things got even worse when the lease on their family home finally ran out. They were forced to move from their spacious city apartment into a tiny, cramped basement unit out in the suburbs. His uncle blamed rising costs, but Ren later found out the man had actually embezzled their entire house deposit. At that moment, Ren realized it was truly just him and his sister against a cruel world. He stood in the streets and screamed at the heavens, demanding to know why they had to suffer so much. Pay attention just as he reached his breaking point and felt abandoned by the world. He received his very first invitation to join the game. This was 2 years ago, and Seowoon asks him if he ever settled the score with those old bullies. Ren admits he didn't do a thing because they all ended up at different high schools. Plus, he had zero interest in starting trouble, since getting arrested meant no one would be left to protect his sister. Ren admits that moving far away actually made their lives much better. Seowoon knows the truth, though things improved not because Ren moved, but because he finally started fighting for himself. Seowoon asks if his sister is okay home alone, but Ren reveals she's with their aunt, who is like a mother figure. Since she is currently on a long break, she is helping out at their family orchard for now. After that story, Seowoon suggests they get back to training. Weeks later, at the National Security Department, the administrative manager, Narusa, is currently tearing into her team for targeting ability users without permission, warning them they're just driving more people to join the resistance. One operative claims they're just following orders, but that backtalk earns a heavy fist slammed right into the table. She tells him straight up withholding reports from her is a direct challenge to her authority. The guy tries to play it off as a delay, but Naruse isn't buying it and smashes the desk again. The dude collapses in pure terror as she looms over him, asking if he really thinks she's that stupid. You and I can see the real issue. The department head is bypassing Naruse entirely to use private groups to hunt down ability users. Apparently, Naruse should be at the top, but she was demoted for being an ability user, forcing her to work with these low-level scrubs. She storms out of the office, announcing to the staff that a full disciplinary hearing will be held. She also informs the lead operative, Yosha, that he's officially suspended from all duties until a final decision is reached. Back in her office, Naruse realizes the truth. The higher-ups are definitely planting spies to monitor her every single move. She's left wondering just how long they'll keep up this pathetic act. Naruse is left isolated because she is an ability user, and her boss doesn't even value her expert opinions anymore. Meanwhile, it's now the 23rd day of training on the mountain, and the two have finally gotten into the rhythm of working together. Seowoon even gives credit where it's due, telling Ren he's made some incredible progress over the past couple of weeks. Still, no matter what Ren tries, he can't seem to land a win against Seowoon. Seowoon encourages him, noting that he's grown plenty without even needing to rely on his staff. Seowoon's gotten stronger too, now manifesting 8 clones. He suggests a final meal before they finally head down the mountain. Ren has to ask if Seowoon really eats ramen every single day, and Seowoon admits he truly missed it while in the game. Ren agrees it beats dry jerky, and Seowoon insists that with an egg, it's the perfect meal for a warrior. It's still pretty crazy that the guy built this much muscle on a ramen diet, but Ren remembers something he heard once. Trust me, you and I are about to see those inner energy gains take their power to a whole new level. Alright, you and I are diving back in as Seowoon realizes research on this actually exists, but a new semester is already looming. Ren just nonchalantly mentions he has a mountain of work waiting at his company. Basically, he left his business unattended to come here. Even if it is small, it cannot function without its president. Seowoon absolutely loses it. How does a literal high school kid already run an entire company? Ren realizes he never mentioned his small online shop, acting like it is no big deal. He explains that converting items from another world into cash is risky, so most players use shell companies to hide the trail. These businesses might lose money, but the rewards from Cloyd are more than enough to cover the overhead. Ren tells Seowoon to keep this in mind if he ever needs to handle massive amounts of cash. Seowoon is completely floored. The more he learns about Ren, the more he realizes just how terrifyingly sharp this guy is. Now watch this. Ren casually drops the news that he already moved Seowoon into a brand new, high-end apartment. Seowoon is stunned again. He demands to know why Ren did this without asking, knowing a place like that costs a fortune. Ren reveals it is a spacious 3-bedroom spot. The catch? The deposit alone was a staggering 20 million yen. Ren explains he cannot risk Siwoon's identity being leaked, especially with so many enemies currently hunting them down. Siwoon is baffled. Why would Ren trust him enough to drop 20 million on a house? Siwoon tells him he did not need to go to such extremes for him, but Ren just says to consider it a loan he can pay back later. Siwoon panics, saying 20 million is impossible to repay casually, but Ren is confident he will earn it in the next game. Once they finish their meal, the duo starts packing their gear to finally head out. Finally, their grueling 3-week training camp comes to an end. Siwoon realizes how much his life has flipped since joining the game, going from a trashy 1-bedroom unit to this massive and luxurious 3-bedroom apartment. You see his shock as he steps inside, realizing the place is way bigger than he ever expected. Ren just points out that it only feels that way because there is no furniture inside yet. Ren asks if he hates it, but Siwoon quickly says he loves it. It just feels massive compared to his old home. Then, Ren offers a housewarming gift. He's going to buy him one brand new appliance of his choice. Siwoon is floored. Ren just saddled him with 20 million in debt, and he is still talking about buying more stuff? He thanks him for everything and tells him to go see his sister, truly grateful for all the help so far. Once Ren leaves, Hammett finally pops up, demanding to know why he was sealed away for an entire month. Siwoon explains he needed to train alone, leaving Hammett stunned by how much their living situation has improved. Siwoon sighs, saying it is a long story, before sitting down to sort through loot he can sell for furniture. Suddenly, he freezes. He senses a strange, powerful presence nearby. He looks out the window to see an apartment building engulfed in flames. This has to be a player's work. He realizes a player is causing a scene. He literally just moved in and someone is already starting a fire? A knock at the door sends him into a panic. Ren is the only person who should know he lives here. He inches toward the door and swings it open, only to find the police standing on his doorstep. The officer tells him they are evacuating the area because of the massive blaze across the street. Siwoon has to follow orders, but he cannot help but wonder who is behind all this chaos. He joins the crowd outside, watching as the fire grows even more out of control. Suddenly, he senses 8 powerful presences. They are clearly hunting something, so he decides to go check out the target. Nearby, a woman is desperately fighting off a group of men. She is clearly a powerful mage. She screams at them to back off, reminding them that they were the ones who started this fight. Watching from the shadows with his cloak of hiding, Seowoon can tell she is at her absolute limit. The men charge her all at once, and she knows there is nothing left she can do. Just as they close in, they are suddenly frozen solid by ice vines. Siwoon is shocked his ice lance worked as a trap. They spin around to see him standing there. When they ask who he is, he tells them they do not need to know. The men immediately assume that Seowoon is working with the lady. So you and I can agree jumping a defenseless woman is absolutely pathetic. Alright, stick with me. You are about to watch Siwoon absolutely dismantle an entire team of agents before they even realize they are being ambushed by him today. After thrashing a bunch of them, the lady demands to know which secret organization he belongs to, but Siwoon coldly tells her that information is way above her pay grade. Suddenly, the agents pull their weapons and lunge forward to subdue them, but instead of retreating, the mysterious lady decides it is time to fight back. Siwoon is genuinely shocked that after he went through the trouble of creating an escape route for her, she actually stays to brawl. He insults her, saying her situational awareness is absolute trash, regardless of how many missions she has been on. The lady unleashes a massive fire attack, forcing those men to scramble for cover and retreat. They regroup quickly, warning her not to underestimate Stockpile, as they have handled players far more powerful than she could ever be. But Siwoon steps back in. Now pay attention. He blurs behind the swordsman and delivers a punch so brutal it almost caves his skull in, leaving her wondering who this guy is. Before she can even blink, Siwoon grabs her and hauls her away from the scene before those agents can find their footing again. After making sure nobody is tailing them, Siwoon literally just dumps the lady onto a random rooftop. She has been screaming at him to let her go, and he just snaps back, calling her an incredibly noisy woman. She argues that being carried around like a grocery bag is beyond rude, and she feels like she might vomit. She asks if he is with another resistance group, since she has never seen his face in her own organization. Siwoon says no, so she asks if he is part of a private organization or some secret government agency. He denies that too. She refuses to believe him though, because he was just wrecking the guys who were trying to capture her. She wonders aloud if there is some other shadow organization out there that she has never heard of. Siwoon claims he is just a normal passerby, but when she keeps pestering him, he tells her to just shut up and lie low. He makes it very clear that he will not be saving her a second time. With that, he vanishes. Honestly, Seowoon only stepped in because he hated the way those government thugs were operating. Even so, he still does not quite understand why he risked his own neck in a mess like that. He wonders if it was just some dumb sense of player kinship, or if he was accidentally playing the hero. You and I both know Siwoon is usually ruthless, so even Hammett calls him out for being uncharacteristically merciful. Siwoon just shrugs and replies that he really just did not like those guys in suits. Ren calls him immediately, worried because he just saw a massive explosion nearby. Seowoon tells him he is fine and explains the whole situation with the lady. When Ren hears that he actually got involved, he loses it, demanding to know what Seowoon was thinking by jumping into that fire. Since Seowoon does not own a bed, he shreds tissues on the floor to make a makeshift bed while telling Ren he planned to just watch, but could not stand seeing them ganging up on one woman. Ren is absolutely stunned, reminding him that he is the same cold guy who was sniping people in the head during the game without a second thought. Seowoon argues that reality and cloud survival are totally different. Ren asks if they saw his face, but Seowoon reveals he was safely tucked away under his cloak of hiding. Ren warns him that while private groups are manageable, getting noticed by government agents is a whole different level of trouble. It would be a massive headache, so he urges caution. Seowoon admits he really does not want to lose his brand new house. Hanging up, Seowoon decides to sleep, making a mental note to buy an electric blanket as soon as tomorrow morning comes. The next day, Naruse visits the military hospital, where the agents Seowoon thrashed are currently being treated for their injuries. The moment she walks in, the team panics, but she just screams at them to tell her exactly what happened. The team leader shakily explains that they were ambushed while they were out on an operation. Naruse absolutely explodes at him, demanding to know why the department manager was never even informed about this secret mission before it started. She wants to know who gave the authorization, and more importantly, who is going to take the fall for this failure. Naruse is about to snap when the general manager walks in, calmly revealing that he was the one who authorized it. She asks him how he could possibly approve this mission without her consent, but he just claims the intel arrived late and required an immediate strike. Naruse asks if he will be the one taking responsibility for the disaster, and he assures her the decision is already made. He tells her not to worry, because he has already smoothed things over with the higher-ups behind the scenes. You and I can see he is just talking trash now, telling her that failure is just part of the job. Alright, you and I are back as the man tells the operatives to heal up fast so they can support Naruse. After a short, pretty annoying speech, the man tells Naruse that it is finally time for her to leave. Naruse doesn't skip a beat, telling the team leader to turn in his report once he gets out of the hospital. A few days later, Seowoon meets Ren, who asks if anything changed after he saved that mysterious lady. Seowoon just sighs, asking if he is only there to give him another boring lecture. Ren explains he is just worried because the kid keeps doing reckless things. While Ren yells, Seowoon is completely focused on his cool necklace. Seowoon mentions that he went back to the store and government agents are crawling all over the place. Luckily, it looks like they still have not figured out his real identity yet. He is also pretty sure they are hunting for the lady he rescued, not looking for him. Seowoon figures staying nearby is safer, since hiding in plain sight is the best move right now. He then asks Ren what stockpile means, since the agents kept calling themselves that name. Pay attention here, because stockpile actually refers to ordinary humans who use special items for abilities instead of being actual players. They don't level up through the system, so it is inefficient, but they still pack a punch. Compared to regular people, they are still strong. Suddenly, Seowoon's phone rings, and he picks it up without even knowing who is calling. Once the guy on the other end starts screaming, he realizes it is just his loud friend Jun. Jun says tomorrow is Naoki's birthday and he has rented a spot, so they should all go together. In that moment, Seowoon realizes he has been so lost in Cloyd that he has completely forgotten his real life. He admits he totally forgot, but Jun reveals he expected this disaster and called to warn him. Jun tells Seowoon to send over his address so he can pick him up tomorrow. Seowoon asks if he really has to go, and Jun admits Naoki is annoying but still worth celebrating. Stick with me, this gets interesting when his friend says that Mina is also coming to the party. Apparently, Seowoon met Mina during his first year of high school, and they were part of the same social circle. Because of that, they slowly became close friends over time. But Seowoon had fallen for her at first sight. He even begged his friends to help him spend more time with her. He held it in for a year, but the moment he finally summoned the courage to confess, everything came crumbling down. After that crushing rejection, Seowoon didn't see Mina for the rest of their second year. After hanging up, Ren asks Seowoon if this Mina girl was his first love. Seowoon asks if he was eavesdropping using some kind of magic, but Ren just laughs and points out that the phone was incredibly loud. He explains it was not exactly his first love, just a one-sided crush that ended in rejection. Ren then offers to teach him a secret confession technique. Seowoon decides to hear what he has to say. Ren says the key is never giving girls time to overthink things. You have to strike at an unexpected moment, which is the most important part. Seowoon asks what he is supposed to do after that. He just has to look his crush in the eye and tell them he likes them while asking that they go out together. He is shocked. Ren is suggesting something so simple, but Ren insists this method actually works. Ren claims this is exactly how he has managed to get all of his past relationships. Seowoon ignores the advice entirely, knowing there is no way he and Ren have lived the same kind of life. He heads out, telling Ren to get home safe while Ren teases him and wishes him good luck. The next morning, Jun shows up early at Siwoon's place and is absolutely blown away by how much the once awkward guy has changed. He is also shocked by the huge apartment, but Seowoon claims he is just renting from a school friend. Siwoon is surprised to see his friend now owns a car. Jun reveals he saved up and took out a small loan to buy the vehicle himself. Siwoon notes he is likely the only guy their age who has actually bought a car with his own money. Apparently, Jun got a job right after high school, and even though things were tough at first, he's now working at a stable company. Getting into the car, Siwoon asks where Naoki made the birthday reservation. And that's where we leave it. You and I will have to see if this birthday dinner turns into a total disaster. A little later, they arrive at the party, and Siwoon is shocked by how expensive the place looks. He asks if Naoki is paying, but Jun says he just loves showing off. Trust me, you and I are watching the Shame brothers walk into a room full of people mocking them. That nickname was actually a mashup created by combining pieces of both their names. Someone asks if he really joined the military, and Siwoon confirms it, adding that he is just planning to return to school. One guy taps his shoulder, asking where he got all those muscles. Siwoon just brushes it off, saying it is just from some light exercise. Things are going well until Naoki and Mina walk in. Naoki acts cold right away, but Siwoon handles the situation with total composure. He ignores the rest of Naoki's questions, keeping his focus entirely on Mina instead. Naoki is furious that Seowoon is ignoring him while looking elsewhere. To smooth things over, Seowoon mentions that he sent him a digital gift card as a birthday present, but Naoki just taps him on the shoulder, making it clear that he has no use for the gift card. Naoki tells him to just sit down and eat. Soon, the party heats up and everyone starts getting wasted. Seowoon realizes he has been so lost in the game that he has completely forgotten about his actual life. Now watch this carefully. Seowoon knows Naoki only invited him to flex his wealth and feel superior. Actually, everyone there is the same. They look at a guy like him just to feel better about their own lives. Naoki eventually slips out, saying he has to step away for a quick phone call. One guy asks why he and Mina arrived together, and someone mentions Naoki has been trying hard to win her over. Apparently, Mina works at a company owned by Naoki's father. Some think she got close to him for that reason, but others aren't so sure. Jun starts teasing Siwoon, asking if he only showed up to see Mina again, but Siwoon makes it clear that is all in the past. He admits that the meat being served is actually pretty good. That is when Naoki reappears, mocking him by saying the food is way too expensive for Seowoon to afford. Naoki leans in, asking if something is wrong, but Seowoon insists he is just happy to see some old faces again. Naoki tells him to look up because he is ruining the vibe. Seowoon cannot believe this guy is still such an annoying jerk. Naoki keeps pushing Seowoon to share his problems, promising to solve them. Seowoon admits having a rich friend is useful and says he will definitely reach out if he ever needs anything. I know what you're thinking, and yeah, Naoki really is that arrogant about his status and power. Seowoon even pours him a drink, but Naoki uses it to talk down to him, saying he pours just like a waiter. He loves that Seowoon finally knows his place. Finally tired of hearing the guy talk trash, Seowoon slams his cup down, telling Naoki he is clearly wasted and needs to go easy on the alcohol. This sets Naoki off. While the others try to calm him down, Seowoon looks him in the eye and asks what his problem is. Naoki brags that he has no beef with a loser like Seowoon, so he should just start acting like one. Even Hamid is furious now, and he is already asking Seowoon for permission to shut Naoki up for good. But Seowoon stays silent, just staring the guy down. The others start blaming Seowoon for the drama, while holding Naoki back from fighting. Naoki demands an apology, but Seowoon just stands up to leave, regretting that he even bothered showing up in the first place. He tells the group they are free to do whatever they want because he is officially leaving. He tells Naoki he is pathetic for being so desperate to show off his money, which only makes the rich kid even angrier. As he walks away, Seowoon is not even bothered by the encounter since he is sure he will never have to see them again. Instead, he is just hyped for the next game to start. Meanwhile, Tatsuya and his crew finally get the report. They have tracked down Seowoon's location, and trust me, you and I are about to see things get dangerous as Tatsuya prepares his men to hunt Seowoon down.